Okay. Well, we're live and on the air now. Welcome back, Tank, Stefan. Looks like, let me go ahead. I had the. Live and on the air now. Welcome back, Tank, Stefan. We're live and on the air now. Welcome back, Tank. I had it going every which way here. All right. Yeah, so this is the part of doing live, right? Yeah.
right.
You know, and I was trying to manipulate it. Says if you got like a crew of people, say, here you go, action, right? And then this guy goes and does this. If you have to do all the things, it's all you got to like jungle. And I thought maybe I had that paused on the back and it put up that nice, the background with the Constitution and that. But nope, it went away since we started live. So now I know I can't do that.
Right. No, I always think about that. I'm like, I set up like a little studio downstairs, but it's a little cold this time of year, so I just figured it's fine. You can see all
my hair is like going in the breeze from the fan.
Yeah, I don't think people care how we look so much as what we have to say. Well, let's hope.
Tank, your volume seems to be a little bit low.
1 second. Let me see what I can do about that.
Yeah, actually, there were some people that commented. I went through some of the comments yesterday, and that was one of the said your volume is low. I found out personally that if you put your jack into your computer, right, or your phone,
yeah,
it sometimes resets the mic level.
Oh, well, so 1 second. I'm gonna disconnect and see.
It might be on your computer side where it's you set recording level, or if it's going to the phone, then it's that might be something. See, these are other things. We could do that testing 1, 2, 3 thing before we start the broadcast, and work this out. Okay, we'll get better at that. Just maybe talk a lot louder.
Well, I'll do my very best. I feel like I'm very loud, but I'll do my best to speak louder. But I noticed that too, that the mic was low.
Yeah. So that's good. So welcome back. I've been looking at our last couple of videos, and we actually have about 1,500 views on the last two, and they were both went up yesterday. So we've got people that are watching, and that's pretty good within doing a day's broadcasting at 1,500 people that have viewed it. So it's good. I encourage everyone, please do subscribe and to go back and see the others and paste them in as a set into your Facebook. Ask people to look through them. So I know they're long and that, but we are going over information that a lot of people just haven't heard before. And I think that if we keep up to date with the information that's coming out and getting more of the tidbits along the way, it will generally help everybody. So I do also think that it's of help if it starts the conversation with other people, and to keep it in a way where there's enough basic information that we're giving out. Now, the most pertinent at this time is what's going on with maybe funding the federal government or money flows, the battle that's going on between the trust and the letting the money flow into the hands of the people. I think that's what most people want to know about.
Well, so we're in this really amazing transitional time, right? That you and I have been talking about for a couple months now. And one of the things I think is important is that a lot of times the GCR, the global currency reset mentality, it fostered such a sense of abundance, in the sense of almost like just a flood of wealth pouring over everyone, and it's gonna be raining gold, uh and and I know um the natural way we are, we kind of translate that to mean, well, that's a good thing, and we want to have an abundance mentality, which I agree we do. Now, but when you truly have an abundance mentality, you really are very confident that in your role, and that there is more, and that you don't have to hoard it away. So one of the big problems is that we've created this hierarchy in the entire structure of the world, and the hierarchy is masterful at hiding away their money, right? And they've hid it away, and they use terms like generational wealth. So they'll take their money, and they've found all these great ways to hide money. Now, in reality, that was a trick, right? So you might have heard this before. This statement that you want to control everything, right, but own nothing, right? That was a statement. It was the statement of it's the mentality of the Rothschilds, right? It's how they have been able to commit
Well,
all types of crimes and things. Yep. Go
well,
ahead.
well, even they were under the instructions, right, to turn over all of their asset into the trust.
That's what I was going to say, right? So now that's the reality, is that everyone did this, right? And because there was this model of very affluent, successful individuals who seemed to get away with anything, right? They could steal whatever they wanted, never track back to them. It tracked back to some trust, to some random trust, right? Or some other activity, right? You could never prosecute them. Matter of fact, last year, no, in 2017, um, we set out because I still have a incredible amount of evidence that any court of law, I mean, we can win on RICO law, that Wells Fargo is criminally negligent for promoting the revaluation of the currency. In fact, they promoted it so strongly, they even were paying certain gurus to actually talk about it and giving them information. And I can say personally, I know this for a fact, that it was a group at Wells Fargo, and all they did was observe the chat rooms, and they observed all the chat rooms. That was a full time job. They observed the chat rooms, and they would feed me intel, and I used to get intel from them. And at the time, I thought that was awesome that I was in the know. But in reality, they were taking advantage of that people at that time were, just in a chat room, just listening to what I was saying. And it seemed like I had this incredible insight, which I did, but it was really just their psyops that they were running. So they were constantly perpetuating this information. Now, that would be my personal testimony. And a matter of fact, and the operative who fed me information from them directly all the time, they let him die. He died off of cancer. And it was sudden.
I'm sorry, who was let to die?
I had he was a CIA operative who, I'm not going to say his name, but and he was feeding me intel directly from these guys constantly, and these guys would scout me. They would send me certain information. They would text me certain information all the time. So I would get this insight that seemed like I had. I mean, very early on, I didn't know what I was doing, or who I was. I mean, it was a number of years ago, but I know that. But as I got to know them, I learned that they were just employed by this faction of Wells Fargo, basically, and that's kind of where my belief in the Chinese elders came from, because Wells Fargo was, we all thought it was, Madame Wu or whatever it was, and controlled by the Chinese elders, right? And since then, well, and then on top of that, when we went to file this lawsuit, I mean, I had emails directly from Wells Fargo acknowledging the global currency reset, how they were going to exchange, and they used to sell dinar, then they denied it, right? They denied they ever sold dinar, but we had receipts from that. We had emails. We had so much evidence. Now, we had all this evidence that they were saying this was happening, right? And they had SKRs. Now, there's a law about this. There's banking laws about SKRs. SKRs are not valid for more than 30 days. Number one. Number two, they're not allowed to put your money and freeze your money unless they give you a written notice with explanation for why they're holding it. So everybody but everyone was so afraid to rock the boat. Now that's what they do. They keep things very secret so that when you find out, you feel like you have been let in on the secret. And because you've been let in on the secret, you feel so privileged, right? So that's why you have all types. You have like a soccer mom from Idaho who becomes like an intel guru, right? And and she thinks she's getting this amazing intel from various special ops groups. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but anyone who's in that situation, if you are getting intel from a special ops group, it is not accurate because no special ops team would ever give you intel before an operation was done, ever, because it would put them in danger.
Well, they were part of not a special ops, but they were part of a psyop.
Psyops, yeah, totally different, right?
Big difference, yeah. So I want to touch on one thing before we get too far away, because we were talking about the owned assets and that the idea is not to own anything. And the way that I saw this is that if they are setting up this whole system, right, this whole civil system, it's all about law and how to basically extract wealth and move it up the channel, up to the top. That means if you owned anything, it would be extracted and moved to the top. So no matter how wealthy you were, it wasn't about owning anything. It was about controlling. Right. And you could have all the power and be able to have all the luxury and everything because you were just riding the waves of this system of control. Right. And so you had power, but you didn't own anything. Of course, there was truly owned things in the world, even real estate. That we know that like the Rothschilds just had to unload some of their assets, right? Right? Why are they unloading their assets? Why are they selling the Black Forest in Austria? I guess it was some large piece of land like that. You could never replace that, right? Once you've sold it. Right? So why are they unloading? Why are they selling their chateaus? Why is this happening to the Rothschilds? Is it they just want to divest and make sure they don't own one thing?
No, actually, what it is that it's approximately 80% of the physical currency, U.S. dollars, which 136 different countries are actually pegged to the dollar, right? So that's most of the world's wealth, we'll say, right? So that 80% of that currency is fraudulent. Okay, it's counterfeit. Now Kim explained this to me. She watched the video and she explained this to me that what these super notes specifically are. They are the actual real printed bills from the Federal Reserve, the real Federal Reserve notes. But instead of having authentic serial numbers, that would be an allocation number that connects them to a specific asset. Instead of that, they just duplicated numbers that were already in the system. Okay, so that's why there's such an amazing fake, because unless you are in the habit in these financial institutions of running the allocation numbers for the currency, you wouldn't know. Now, that's one of the issues because for the past about 10 years, that's not a regular practice. So, and I ran into this a few times that we would want to do a transfer. And people are always asking me, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Which I find to be laughable, to be quite honest, because most people don't have a clue what's going on. And first of all, and secondly, they don't ask anybody else. They don't ask anybody for proof of what they're saying. We just all assume it's true because it's repeated so many times, right? So, you and I could have a conversation, and if we were famous, I could reference you, and you could reference me. Well, Dan said this, and Tank said this, and that would be all the validation we need. Meanwhile, it was a conversation you and I were having in the first place, right? That's kind of how they validate things. And people's research is so pathetic. They do a Google search now, which is we all know is a controlled entity that is putting out. I mean, they're like the head psyops, right? I mean, they give people the illusion that they're doing deep research, but they're not. They're doing a Google search. 99% of Google searches don't go past the first page. You do one search, whatever comes up first, you think is real, right? So now, what amazed me, and I was really really discouraged by this for a while, is we would go to transfer money in from the trust. And when we would go to transfer money in from the trust, what would happen is there's a process. We would use the real-time gross settlement, the interbanking system, which every bank has. They would use this a very specific, a Swift 2 terminal, and they would enter the account number that we gave them, which at the time, Create Change had its own account in the trust, and or at least our name appeared on it. So when we went to bring in money, they would enter the account number, and that would send a ping to Kim. Kim would authorize it. It would send a ping back to the bank, and that would open up the government level system. So when it would open up, what they could see was they would see Kim's passport. They would see the account number. I believe that time they would see like it was this account was for Create Change for this particular example. And then they would see the allocation numbers of the currency, right? So that they could use that allocation number to know that this is a legitimate batch of currency. And they would see the amount of money in the account. And they would see the Homeland Security clearance number to validate that it was real. They would see the Bank of International Settlements number. All that would show up. So they could see through their own banking system. Now, that's how you validate it. They could take those numbers and they would take them and they would send them to the Department of the Treasury. And then the Department of the Treasury would validate, yes, that's a legitimate batch number. That is a legitimate allocation. And yes, that is who it's allocated to. Now, that's how you validate these things. Now, this happened to us. We brought in just a small amount of money into, $1 million brought into for one of our members, and they brought it into SunTrust Bank. They had Kim validated right away to the second when they ran the cross check with the Department of Treasury. We were on the phone with the bank when they brought the money in and validated that the money was there. So we knew the money had come in. All it had to do was be placed in our member's account. When that happened, the bank was so happy to talk to us. They were bending over backwards. They loved the idea that we were going to do these humanitarian projects and use them. Everybody in our organization was so excited. We're like, we did it. We got them. Like we're bringing this money and we're going to restore the people. Lo and behold, all of a sudden, in an instant, suddenly they stopped. We're on the phone with them. They said they'd call us back. We started calling in. All of a sudden, it was like we had turned into public enemy number one. They wouldn't answer our calls. They wouldn't talk to us. Suddenly, within minutes, it was a scam. What happened was it was a group of called private military, mercenaries, paid guns, came in posing as FBI agents. And they basically came into the wire room, which was down in Orlando, and they took over the wire room, and they took over the terminal. They sat down at the terminal, and the money was there in the bank. It had already come in, and everyone saw it happen. And they took the money, and they redirected it up to something called the Chicago Mercantile, which we believe was connected to Obama's group somehow. Something like that. I can't say for sure what that was, but some other cabal run group where they were laundering money or hiding money. And then we took, and then all Kim did was, because she does everything with a CID number, she just pulled it back. So they can't steal from her. So that's kind of the joke, right? So that's why this big standoff, because all we're trying to do is get money to the people. Now, the reason why you can't get money, the reason why it's such a struggle, is there is this hierarchy, and a big part of that hierarchy exists in our mind. It's from the psyops. If people don't know what psyops.
To those that we believe are higher up us to have the authority.
Right. And man, I talk about this all the time, but it bears repeating. Is whether it really happened or not, the way the story goes is Willie Lynch in 1712 shows up, a humble slave owner, which I don't know how you could be a humble slave owner, but allegedly a humble slave owner came in from the banks of the Mississippi to speak to other slave owners. And he comes in and he says, I could smell the rotting carcass of one of your slaves hanging from a tree as I came in. And he says, now you are still using violence and methods of punishment to try to manage your slaves and keep them in order. And he said, I am going to give you a method today that will have your slaves enslave themselves for the next 300 years. So from there, he went on to explain, now here's what you do. You and every member of your house, you divide them. You divide the women from the children, the husbands from the wives. You divide them by their hair color, their eye color, their skin color, their height, their strength, their weight. You divide them by their beauty, by their intelligence. And you constantly feed them lies about each other until they're so divided against each other that the only person they trust is you. Now, think about that. That is why we have a hierarchy, because we all trust. When people hear, when regular mainstream people hear some of the things that we share, and I'm big on this. I am not a conspiracy theorist. And I have to be very clear about it. I am not. I am giving information that is fact. I'm telling people things that are absolutely true, that most logical human beings can watch the news and see are happening right in front of them. And if we would just be honest, we'd know, oh, this is happening right in front of us. So it's not a theory. The things that you have shared, you've seen things.
It's conspiracy fact.
It's right. It isn't. But people hear conspiracy, they immediately think, oh, you're a hack. No, like, you've seen real things. It's a real conspiracy, and because it doesn't affect everybody the way they think, they don't know what affects them, I guess, right? We all think it's normal to die at 75 years old. We think that's normal. That's a normal lifespan, but it's not, right? Our life's being shortened by things. Fluoride in the water is not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. That it's a poison is not a theory. It's a fact, right? And the effects it has on people, it's not a theory. It's a fact. After a while, it's like, okay, how much do I have to bury you with facts before you start to say, these guys are making sense? We got to think about what they're saying, because I guarantee, just between you and I, if all we talked about was absolute facts today, it proves beyond a shadow of doubt in any court of law, it can be proven that we are under siege. That there is a hierarchy in place, and this is something that Kim was talking about today. She said we have to break up the hierarchy. We have to get rid of it, because the way the hierarchy works,
there's no restructuring the hierarchy, right? That you cannot give them new rules to play with. They have to go off on vacation permanently. I don't mean I don't mean killing them, but I do mean taking them out of commission completely. They can go and play and maybe own some things. Maybe own a farm, go on a farm and do some things. But no more can you be involved in the financial and controlling systems of the planet, because you don't know how to do anything other than what you've been doing.
And I agree. And you know what? And I always say I think farming is an excellent option. And we should create very special farms just for them. And in those farms, we will put these farms inside of a giant dome. And inside that dome, we will fill the dome with chemtrails. We will make sure the water is completely fluoride, because these are things they wanted.
Yeah, they wanted.
This is what they wanted. They wanted it for us.
Yeah.
And because we agree with their methodology.
If they agree to that, then okay. But if
well, I'm trying to respect their lifestyle.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, I'm kidding.
I hear you. It's better to be joking about it, but there is seriousness to it, because, and the reality is that they're going along with it, even that they know that it's wrong, and they push that little voice on their shoulder that says you shouldn't be doing this. Kick them off their shoulder, bink, right? They're going along with it. They know what they're doing is wrong. If their punishment is just going off and farming or whatever, something that's out of the controlling factors of society, then that's what they have to accept that, and they have to move on. And I know that in the Q movement, that there is this understanding that those that have hurt others, they're in big trouble. Right? But if you haven't hurt anybody, and it's just about the money, right? Then you still have to be moved onto the farm. You have to move out of society, and maybe it's prison for you for whatever you did, because there are laws involved. But the others that have hurt others, they're looking at treason. That's why they want to remove hanging, lynching as a possible crime, right? A crime against humanity to do lynching. Well, I'd like to amend that. That they passed that, right? Said that's great. No more lynching, except for treason and sedition.
Right. No more lynching, because you know what that really was doing, right? They constantly come up with things to get us to focus on, because nobody is going to say that lynching is not a hate crime. Obviously, lynching is a hate crime, but anybody who understands the law understands that any crime that is motivated by race or sexual preference or some specific group, if the crime is motivated by that and is violent in nature, it is always tried as a hate crime. That's what happens. So for them to categorize and say lynching, which there's not a recorded lynching in the past 50 years, okay, they try to make something, like you said, part of it is because they're afraid of these military tribunals, right? But part of it is just to distract us, right? So now it's like, oh, Kamala Harris, what a brave soul to get up and talk about lynching. Finally, we don't have to worry about that. It's like after the party's over, the cops came, busted up, everyone's there. You come out of your room and say, "Hey, quiet down." It's like, great, good job. Thank you for your contribution. We give these people too much credit, and we blindly allow them to, like Cory Booker is just a nightmare. The entire Brett Kavanaugh case, when they were going after him the way they were, it was such a programmed script, right? And I don't even have, I'm not speaking one side of that or another. I'm just saying, from a standpoint of, they were pathetic. They kept repeating, it was so obnoxious. They were like, Mr. Honor, whatever they called him, Mr. Kavanaugh, after we just heard the compelling, moving, emotional, sincere, amazing testimony of, I was like, stop. It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. And it wasn't accurate, right? It was a lie. And nobody did anything. So the biggest problem, in my opinion, instead of discussing things like, what it comes down to is consequences being enforced. Because what you'll notice is, there was just an article out, like I said yesterday, that had very clear evidence. The mainstream media put it out. They're the ones who are, dictating the narrative. And even they put out a story about Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation covering up a pedophile ring. And she did it actively as the Secretary of State, or Secretary, whatever she was, right? And then what happens? Nothing. But this happened. You had somebody put out documents, right? They doxed somebody in Congress, right? It was from one of the Congress people's office. Why didn't that congressperson get arrested? Within a day, they arrested the lowly intern. Why did the intern get arrested while these guys are openly getting away with crimes? And it's not even a question. It's obvious to everyone at this point. You could get most of these guys on RICO law. Here's a timestamp and date when you committed these crimes. You could track all this stuff back. It's not even hard anymore. There's so much evidence circulating, and it's real evidence. This stuff is real. As much as they want to dismiss it, it's real. And the hierarchy has to be busted. Like, they should not be allowed to escape these laws. But the reason why they do is because, I might have something on you, but you got something on me. So I'm the one who's supposed to convict you, but I won't, right? Because, you've got something on me. So you have this severe lack of integrity. So that's the reason why they got to go.
I think there is some of that. I think is a little more sophisticated. I think that it's so much far beyond as this structure of governance. That shadow government is so deeper and more entrenched than we can even imagine that it is. Right? We're just opening and peeking through the door right now at the deep state. right? Most people are just saying, okay, there is a deep state. There's a group of people that hired, and they're drunk on their own power. They coordinate with one another, but it's actually much more structured, much more deeper, or higher levels that these things are so scripted. That's why they sound like they're scripted. They have to follow their scripts. They get the 3 a.m. talking points, and in the media, they get theirs. Well, the people in the Congress, they get their 3 a.m. talking points, and they just follow script. And it's the ones that are off script. Well, now it's famous where Trump now in his CPAC said, "I'm off script." Right? He made a point to say it, right? And
yeah.
it's he's off script, and so that's why they can't deal with being off script. So, anything when you build this bureaucracy, it's a structure, and if you're a cog in that structure, you're only going to do what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, you're a wrong gear that fits in that, and you start throwing off the entire thing until it vibrates out of existence, and that's what's in process right now. We see that in it. So yeah, we are getting rid of this structure, right? It is already underway. It's just we have to also be concerned with what it's replaced with, and quite frankly, anyone in government can't create anything. They don't create. So we have to create the structure that's going to replace it. Right? Because we're the
You are
creators.
absolutely right. I agree. The claim to fame of my friend David Hayden, actually, he's the same guy who invented the cloud. And he many years ago he bought one of the 2 original copies of the Constitution. And he used to quote it to me all the time. And he knew the whole thing by heart. And one of the things he'd always say to me is, it's a government, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, so I apologize, David, but it's a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. Now, for that to be real, people have to be involved. Now, the problem is this: you have generational politicians. You have people that have held offices for 30, 40 years almost. They've been around since, the 80s, early 80s. They're still playing this role. You have, and then on top of that, this is another one. This is very well documented. And I would love for someone from People Magazine to contact me, because I understand that they leaked this out, but they have not had the courage to put it out themselves. And I forget I don't know if it was like 1989 or 90, when George H.W. Bush, I think, they did an investigation on him. And back then they put $1 million to investigate this, which was huge from what I understand at the time. And they investigated this, and it was Dick Cheney, and I believe was involved or something like this. And there were these orphans that came and did a tour from this orphanage of the White House, and the vice president or whoever, George H.W. Bush, somebody called and said that, we'd like these 3 children or 4 children to come back to the White House and spend the night. We don't have enough room for all the kids to stay, but just those 4. They brought them back to the White House. They drugged them, with this, gave them punch. They had what they called like a voodoo mixture, and the kids were all messed up. And they had these new congressmen. And so they were indoctrinating these new congressmen with the way they do things. And they proceeded to, show them how they raped and did whatever to the kids. And they gave the congressman the same voodoo, and they were all messed up. And they whatever it was, they lost all sense of reality, of consequences, of right and wrong, I guess, of morality in any way. And they participated, and they filmed the whole thing. Then they keep that film, they keep those videos, and they use them all the time. And that's what I mean. That's not it is a what you're saying. And I know it's easy. It's one of those things that's easy to say, like, well, that doesn't happen all the time. That happens all the time. That happens all the time. Matter of fact, there's a radio show out of Las Vegas, and the woman has the entire radio station, actually. And she used to work for ABC News. And she left the news because they were making the news. And she told me about it. How they'd show up to a scene and they change things around. Yeah, they'd manufacture a story, and she challenged it. She said, "Are we reporting the news or making the news?" And the reality was they were making the news, right? So she left, but she was also, I mean, she was kind of a way out there kind of a person, right? She was in a vampire coven for 7 years, and in that vampire coven, she said the reason why she left. Now, this is so. And what she said was, I'm someone who has a pretty um, a pretty high tolerance for weird, right? And she said, but it got even weird for me. And she was saying how that these certain women, they would end up being the owned property of these, you know, mysterious rich men who would show up, right? And they would end up being the property, and they would get this tattoo on their shoulder, and it's like a curse. You're basically selling your soul, right, for your success. And she told me, she goes, and I see many of those same women in Congress today, right? Because they sold their soul, they're their property, and then they're able to go do this. So it's not. It's not. I mean, these are facts. These are direct testimonies from people. These are. I mean, these are people who had these experiences, and in her case, she didn't go so far. I guess that it was too much for her, but you can imagine that people just get wrapped up with the idea of being famous, and or not being famous, being powerful, being rich, being secure. There's all types of things they use against us. Kim said this to me today too. She said, at this level, at the highest levels, it's all about the 7 deadly sins. And if you violate those 7 deadly sins, if you're on the right path and you violate one of them, you just kind of fall off the radar. Now, but that's in our world that we're creating, so to speak. But in their world, you're rewarded for that, right? It's like that's how you get ahead, and that's the perversion, right?
You move up in power, the more stuff that they have on you, the deeper, the darker, the ugly that's there, the more that they can get on you, you move up. And that's also part of their security clearance gateway. That's why Trump has had so much trouble getting people through the door, is because if they don't have anything on you, they won't give you the security clearance, which means you can't come in. So they guard them.
That's a deep point you just made. Repeat that, because I'm telling you, I don't think people realize that's what he's up against. That what you just said is very, very important.
Yeah, that these people are the gatekeepers. And if you want to control the government, you want only your people in. If you can only go by security clearance, you have this access, this access, this access, this access. If the person in control of that access is your guy, you can then say how far up the chain of command you can go inside the government if you control who does the security clearances. Right? And if you don't have enough dirt on them, you don't allow them up, right? If they're a really good person, you're not going to let them in, right? I mean, you might politically, some may slip through because they have such a social presence in the world that they're just going to get there, right? They're just going to walk through the door because they have so much political pressure from the positive side that they're going to have to let that one through. They'll make some exceptions, but for the most part, and this isn't all public people, right? This is the people behind the scenes that you never know that are there, that are head of these different departments, of these vast departments that are out there, right? And they graduate and they create. And one of the things that Trump is going up against is and what we saw with the government shutdown, is that 80% of the people in there are unnecessary, but they create their own process jobs. If I move this piece of paper from here to here, and then we know that it has to go there and get signed, and then this person takes it and then moves it to this part to get signed, and then someone goes and checks with the first person, they've created a process. And they require all those people in place to do something that the first person didn't really need to have go through that process. But by creating these stupid processes, they create jobs, and they then create a higher budget for that department. And if they can get big enough, they can graduate to be an agency and all on their own and get their own budgets. So this is the process that is there, and all it does is create waste. And so if we can get rid of, the 800,000, people that are not doing anything, that's a big benefit to us.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, less
Sorry,
government. Right.
I got a little off topic on that, but it kind of
No,
sprung.
that's a great. No, I think you're right on. No, I think you're right on topic. Because I'll tell you something else. One of the things in the U.S. government, in particular, right, is you have the SES, right, the senior executive staff, I believe, and
Service.
service, senior executive service. Now, nobody knows who these people are, right? Now,
Can't
we have a
fire them.
list. You can't fire them, right? They're appointed by the president, right? And President Obama appointed an additional 8,000 of them, right? And they have very high level security clearance. And
they can go into any department and take over. They just show up, and now they are the one in charge. Right?
Now,
so that is a shadow government. That if you have a group of 8,000 people that can go, I think there's a total of 8,000 of them, but 7,000 were appointed by Obama. I think that's what it was. But those people can go into any department, take over, and they're coordinating with one another. And you can't fire them, and you don't even get to know what they do.
Right, because they are too important. And I have some of the names, and I'll tell you what, they don't do a damn thing. None of them are that important. The ones that I know, and they're, for the most part, they're actors, right? Because they're acting like something somewhere, but they don't play any real role. Their role is some, fabricated thing that everyone kind of tries to endorse.
Own talking points. They have their own orders, and it has nothing to do with Congress or the president. Right, and they go in and they do what they're doing. So when you're draining the swamp, this is the level of swamp that has to go, right? And you have to get rid of that whole branch or it's not even a branch; it's a tree above the tree. It's its own entity that gets paid by us.
Well, and that's why if I was going to really encapsulate the movement that I think is so essential for everyone, is they've zombified us, right? They've put us all in this trance. And granted, you do. I would say that historically they're going to refer to this time as the Great Awakening, and because it's the Great Awakening, you have more people that are waking up. But the thing is that we really have to push that envelope. We really have to wake people up on a much more aggressive scale, because if people really understood what was happening, they would never stand for it. I mean, you're looking at what's happening in France, right? And they're at war. The people are at war with the government, right? Because the French have been through this, right? They've already been through the let them eat cake stage of their revolution. But you're witnessing the same thing. I mean, that's exactly what's happening, is another type of revolution. Now, I will never advocate for a violent revolution, but it doesn't take violence. What it takes is a unified stance. And it would take as much as, say, us all agreeing, like, we're going to meet in New York and we're going to go to this bank and just show up and not even do anything. Just show up at the bank.
Yeah.
And if you had 10,000 people show up at the same bank, you clog up their operation. And just by standing there in solidarity, it represents such an incredible energetic shift, right? And it takes people to have it. I look at the way Gandhi did it, right? I mean, hey, we're going to get our own salt from the water. Brilliant. We could do that. It's free. Right? Like, imagine the genius of things like that, right? Stop using their system. All of these advertisers that support the mainstream media, and it's not about not supporting the mainstream media. It's fair balance. There has to be. I have never seen the news so unhinged in the way that they talk. I mean, they are out of control. It's like there's more to that story that you just told, right?
If we had nuclear disarmament of North Korea and not only did they give up all their nukes, that they literally just started that day removing all the blockades between the North and the South, right, on the demilitarized zone. And they basically pulled back all their troops and disbanded their army, right? They wouldn't even acknowledge that Trump was part of it, right? They would do anything to say, how bad Trump is for causing this.
Anything. It is so ridiculous. I mean, like, no one talks about that North Korea, this evil evil empire they created, that everyone would, just this mysterious backdrop and, things, no one's going to talk about that he talked, and they're going to criticize him for talking to someone. Like, that's kind of what politics is, right? You find a way to come to reasonable terms, not to, to go to war with each other. That's what it should be. But, it's in the Iron Mountain report. War has been used over for thousands of years as a tool to manage us, right? It's also, for them, it's an economic stimulator, right? Because it forces the production of things that are, unique. So everybody, you put all the slaves to work, or you send them off to get killed, right? And so while everybody's working, you're generating more money, more control, right? And people are constantly, like, after the war, it's still global martial law, right? People don't realize this, but please go look this up. Everything. That's the other thing too. All my admins and my people were fired up about people coming in and trying to poke holes in the things we were saying, and they were like, "I want proof." First of all, who are you that we have to prove anything to you? We don't have to prove anything. You don't see it. I don't care, because if you don't see this, what we're saying is so mainstream, it's so obvious to any logical human being. Believe me, nothing I'm going to give you is going to prove it to you. I have a letter from a contractor who is a contractor of Homeland Security. They do cybersecurity, and they are an extension. They're covered under the umbrella of Homeland Security, so they're considered to be part of Homeland Security. I have the letter that says outright they have validated all of the funds held by the Manna World Holding Trust, that Kimberly Ann Gogan is the one who is over that trust, and they completely indemnify any bank receiving a transfer from the Manna World Holding Trust, and because they've already validated it. And so they take complete responsibility. In what world do you have a guarantee from Homeland Security like that any logical business or bank would block that money? Nobody would. The only reason is because they have an agenda, and if she brings the money in, it completely disrupts their agenda, right?
Well, Frank, before we go past this, I'm going to bring up that I've in investigating Manna World Holding Trust, have asked people that I know for verification of some of the things that I picked up off of listening to Thomas Williams, and off of the Lucid Junior, because that's how I know he has a separate channel. I didn't know for the first 5 months that he had a separate channel.
Right.
Lucid Dreamer, but I know he endorsed that in like one of the latest videos that he's put out on his own channel. But I asked some of the people that I'm working with about things that I've heard, like the transfers that were done to the Treasury from the trust, by pulling down into the trust. And I knew of 3 that happened last year that it was from listening to Thomas, when they had occurred, and so on. And so I actually had that verified. And I've also heard from other, not just the U.S. Treasury, but also from the English side, that the name on the trust is Kim's.
Yeah.
So I can see that there's a lot there, right? And when you're going up against this system that is completely controlled, and you're trying to do something that they don't want to have happen, they're going to put up as many roadblocks as they can think of. I'm actually just surprised that Kim has found ways to go around and get things happening. Like I know, I know that figured out before I heard it from Thomas the name of the bank that Trump was pulling down funds in. Right, I've known that he has. Well, we guessed that he had his own terminal in the Oval Office. All right,
I can validate that. That's a fact. That's not a guess. He does.
Yeah, and you've said like the Nunage comes in and he has these gold certificates and he checks. Oh, that's not you. It's not from the Chinese elder. It's Kim.
Oh yeah, Mnuchin, right?
Mnuchin,
well,
yeah.
And this is the part that really it's really hard for people because people think there's these two options, right? And the only thing I can say is it's really not an option. No more than life and death is an option, right? It's like if you have those two options, like you should choose life, right? Like, but that's kind of the option at hand. So people think they have a way around it, and
They don't believe this part, right? That's the thing. Right. The people that are involved, they say, well, I don't want to commit suicide. I'm not trying to kill off the people of the planet, but they don't really absorb that. They don't think that that this is a game of life and death, and that they're just on that side. It's this all this other stuff. They have to get to that point of awakening, the enlightenment, right? That this is what it actually is. It's good versus evil, and that's the game. And you can rise up beyond good and evil, and treat that as that's a program, right? A back and forth that's going on, and that this is something that we have to recognize and move beyond. So these people are in it, and it's hard for them to realize it. So I get it, right? It's the psychology of it, and even if they start to realize and they listen to a program like this or QAnon, right, and they start to open up their eyes, they're still going to be in denial about their particular role in it. So
very true. There is I do give people a break from really not understanding. They really cannot it's hard, and I get that. And I would say that we're more the anomaly than the normal, right? But one of the things that I'm trying to tap into people about is, you have all of this busy work that goes on, right? Like when a teacher wanted the kids to settle down, she'd give them a bunch of busy work. That's what's happened over and over and over again with things like, the people who think they're the authorities and setting up for the like these old bonds, like the Pacelli bonds and the the Chinese war bonds and things like that. They have these, and they're real bonds. Matter of fact, I have one myself that was I actually sent it out like a year ago, and it was validated by this very serious organization in Switzerland, and it was minted. Everything about it was authentic, and the value of it was a couple $1 billion. And this lawyer who was convinced, he knew how to get around everything. He was like, look, I know how to do this. He kept telling me like, no, he was telling me he was talking to the head of the White Dragons, right? And he knew exactly, and they were doing these redemptions, and he was going to Switzerland, and he had an account there. Everything by the book, and it wasn't just him. There was hundreds of lawyers involved in this one exchange they were doing, and they were all going out to Switzerland, I guess, to meet there. And this happened. I forget when it was. It was just in 2018. And the head of the White Dragon family said, "We do not have the codes. We cannot access the money, and we cannot do the exchange." He admitted it. I think he was one who thought he was going to get him, I guess, and then finally they had the revelation, like, these old code books that people have, the only reason why they had power is because they were allowed to work. They weren't like an indefinite combination that you could access this whenever you wanted. It wasn't like that. It was, I put the codes in, and then I gave you the code, right? And if I want to turn the code off, the code's no longer valid, right?
Right.
So when the comptroller, when he turned off those codes, they didn't work anymore. And there's a a lot of the private military, guys who went, did like a couple tours or whatever, and then they came out and they wanted to make money. They went into the private military, right? And so they basically became mercenaries, right? And I'm careful to use that term because I don't want to be disrespectful because there's lots of good guys in there. But one of the things that would happen is when they would go do a job, whatever that job entailed, they would get paid, right? And they would get paid, and what the whoever ordered the job done, which was the Rothschilds and the Chinese elders, they at that time they had access to the back ledger, to the off ledger accounts, which is the trust. So they would say, you know what, I'm going to do you this favor, so you're not taxed. I'm going to save you money on your taxes. So I'm going to take your money that I owe you, and you can keep it here in the off ledger. And whenever you want to get to it, just let me know. And they, you want to buy a house, they'd give them a card and they could go access it and they'd have enough money to go buy the house. And they used to always do that. That was normal. And they all, for the most part, thought they were gaming the system, right? They had this off, they were in the know, they had the off ledger accounts, right? So in 2007, when Marduk, when the comptroller shut the trust off, all their money got locked in there. And those are the same guys who still guard the Chinese elders to this day, right? And the reason why they're guarding them is because the Chinese elders and various factions of the Rothschilds have convinced them that someone stole the money from them, right? And they need to protect them so that they can get their money back, right? And in return, they're giving them all types of dinar to, but take this dinar, and we're going to make you the authority on this trust and all this stuff like that. They don't have control of that money. It levels and levels. And I'll tell you what, there is no way on earth they will ever have control of it again, ever. It doesn't matter what they do. So what they would do though, and these poor guys, these mercenaries, they would be at one point a group of them. I think it was like 2014 or 15, something like that. A large group of them. I want to say like 50 of them went up to Kim because they were told that Kim stole the money. And they went up to where she was staying at the time to kill her, right, and force her to give her the money. And she went down, or like her security guys intercepted them, right, and I speak the same language, I guess, and basically said, look, you guys got it wrong. This has been locked up since 2007. She didn't even become the trustee until 2012. It wasn't her. Matter of fact, she's doing all she can to get you the money back, right? These guys, they're so clever in the way they and they had this humble way of looking frail and acting all sheepish, and we're just benevolent little Chinese elders. I mean, what are you gonna do? It's all scam. Every bit of it's a scam. And then someone like me comes out and says this, and I'm a brutish animal. Listen to me. I've gone on the wrong path.
One of the reasons why I'm having the guys that I'm working with check out these things, right, with the Treasury or with in England, is because we're also deep on the side of waiting for the GCR, right? I said, listen, this is something that's going on here, and this makes more sense over here, right? This is making more sense, and can we verify this? And now, even though they're the ones verifying, right, and they have it in their face, right, they don't want to let go.
I know.
And they're holding on to it. And I said, yes, I know the GCR is tomorrow. I mean, I'm going to be so happy, right? Because we're going to get paid, and that's wonderful. But I don't think it's going to happen, right? And so now we've got some bets going, right? But I only either bet $1 or dinner. That's as far as I go whenever I bet, right? So I've got some dinners piling up.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well, I can tell you this, that they've promised the world to everyone in, now what, like 12 days or 11 days, whatever it is. They have promised it's coming. Everything's about to change. But, the same guys who've been ruling and killing everyone, now they're benevolent. They found Jesus. I mean, everything's magic, right? But I can tell you this. that's days off. What Kim told me today, she said they can keep talking about what they're going to do in their never-ending tomorrow game, but she has already built an entire bypass and she is ready to go. And that is within days. That is within days of launching, and I'll say within hours to days. But it's here, and my understanding is that when that launches, there is nothing they will ever be able to do again to stop us from transferring money. Now, they've gone every possible way. They've tried to kill everybody. They've done all these things. At some point, I mean, I would hope that some part of them wakes up and kind of repents and it just says we gotta jump ship. I would hope somebody would. But the problem is at this point, Kim has given them. I mean, just in my short period of time, the year and a half that I've been working with her, I mean, hundreds of opportunities to cooperate. I mean, just my group alone has literally had 200 transactions that we were trying to work on that they would not. I mean, they would pretend to work with us and block us, or they let us get so far and stop us. Open accounts, close accounts. One of my guys had $500,000 stolen from him. Because they were targeting anything that had my brand on it. Create change. As soon as that showed up, they targeted it and stole his money, and he still couldn't get it back. So they don't have anyone's best interest in mind. They're not so grateful to finally do the GCR so that they can finally, restore humanity. They do not care about humanity like that. And I'm sorry to say it like that, but what they care about, the minions, what the minions care about is protecting their reputation. So they're betting on, what they see as like, well, these guys have been doing this stuff forever, right? They're so powerful and they're so enamored by their power that essentially they act like a pack of cowards, right? That they can't stand up to them. And because of that, all of us are kind of held hostage and they're negotiating our enslavement.
There's one good thing though, is as soon as the finger gets pulled out of the dike, that crack is gonna spread very quickly, and the whole tidal flood of abundance is gonna roll right through it. And if it's only hours or days away, and the funding is there, then that's it. We're going to see this cracking go out throughout the financial district, and things will be reshaped. And it's about time.
Well, I will say this, that a lot of people want me to clarify on this. Now, we are going to, people that have projects and have real projects, real things they're working on. There is grant money available for those projects. But I want to be clear, this, like flow of money from the heavens, that's never going to happen like that, because the way that this money has to come out, that is in the best interest of all humanity, is the money will come out because there's a production line that demands it. And because there's a product, there's some level of work that needs to be done, whatever that is. And that encompasses a lot of things, because, Kim is the one who's been working with them to get rid of the IRS, and this bill's on the table. And they asked for her help to do that. She's the one that forgave the debt. There is no U.S. debt. There is no debt. There is no debt. You would think President Trump would be out. I mean, like, he ought to be out talking, like, because of the decisions I made. Because Kim would love for him to come out and take credit for that. She wouldn't care, because she's not about getting credit. She's not trying to play that role. And as a president, I'm not sure what the play is there. Because if he were to come out and say that and present that information and show facts that it's true, it would change everything. So, but the project money will flow for the people, for anyone who really has a genuine heart to help and wants to do good things, right? It's there, but I just want to clarify, because I think sometimes people think just all of a sudden it's going to be the GCR narrative, the GCR and the Sarah narrative. There's no law that exists that's registered anywhere in any system about GCR and Sarah. Just for the record, I know we all talk about it, but it doesn't actually exist where these things are recognized as laws. It's just not there. So
well, I know. I read the law for Nasara. I never saw anything on GCR, but I read the bill. Right. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was. The story behind it is true, but when it was going on, I heard about it. Right. And I said, well, that's very interesting. Let's go. And then of course nothing happened. So it's a compelling story, but yeah, is there any reality to it? I don't know. But we do need to have this replacement of government. I did appreciate that. Actually, when I was in high school, I was very active politically in my thinking about things. And even back then, I said, I'm more of a Republican. The Democrats make no sense to me, but all the things that they blame Republicans for, it doesn't make any sense. But I said they're all the same. They're both sides of that is the same. So I think the only way for us to fix this is and I had my own slogan: vote new. That means in 2 or 3 election cycles, we replace everyone, and these were the rules. Number one, you can't vote for an attorney. Yes, because everyone in Congress is an attorney, and I knew that was against, it's mixing of the branches, right? Judicial, executive, and legislative. So how can you get the judicial and the legislative combined there by having attorneys be in the government? So that was number 2. Nobody in media, right? And then third was no one in any union management, not in unions, but in the management of unions. Because this was the power structure as I saw it while I was in high school. I said, eliminate those and only vote for butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, and computer repairmen to kind of update, right?
That's the category. That is the new elite. I love it.
Yeah. So that was me in high school, but but that's stuck with me. I said the only way for us to really replace the problem is to replace these people that are in there, because they're not for us; they're for themselves, for their own power structure. And now to know really the depths of evil, and it is truly evil that has broken into what this is. If you can define what evil is, you say, okay, this is what has happened. These are the people that are killing children. They are eating people. Right? They are trying to cause misery on the planet. That is the definition of evil. So this is what we have to get rid of, and that means we have to really vote them out. But we don't know who's there because the media is part of it, right?
Yeah, so, no, it's a massive undertaking. When you really
so the
look
only
at
way to really do it is we have to draft the people in our neighborhoods, right, and get them to go into and they have to not want to be it. We pick the people that don't want the power.
Yes, it's funny. I really agree with that. I used to say the same thing. Excuse me. I used to say the same thing about the money. You want to give money to people that traditionally would have been perceived as being bad with money, right? And the reason why we would call them bad with money is because they would go spend it. But in reality, if you really have an abundant mentality, you should go spend it, right? The hoarding mentality, hoarding it away, for a rainy day, all that nonsense, that's because there's not enough of it, right? So we think we got to hide it away. We got to be, I'm not saying you're not to be irresponsible, but I'm with you. It's you find people that aren't power hungry, people that are just truly represent the interests, who actually realize this is so much easier to get done than you guys make it, right? Because you don't actually want to get anything done. You just want it to look like you're doing something, because they don't want to get anything done. I mean, there are so many things right now that are out there. I mean, even and I know I'm trying. I don't want to ostracize the Q crowd, because I do appreciate the work he's done, or work that whoever has done, but it's still 2 years of watching and waiting, of making noise on Twitter, of complaining, and really creating an even stronger divide, right, between Republican and Democrat. And people, you could not ever say Trump ever did anything wrong. Now, the reality is, the guy's probably got a history, because there's a lot of things that should be done by now that I know for a fact he was blackmailed on, right? Now, I'm not saying they were, the horrifying things that we've heard. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they get something on everybody. So
Yeah,
we have to.
I really like this one that they say, you know what? Likes beautiful women.
I know.
I know.
Don't let that out. Don't let that. Or he paid
This is
he
really
paid hush
bad.
money. Like they made hush money like it's an official legal term, right? Like President Trump, who paid hush money. I mean, it's obvious that he broke the law. Wait a minute. You had a porn star that did he hook up with her? Probably. At some point, he probably hooked up with a hot girl who did porn. Like, he's a rich guy. Like, I mean,
It's like an occupational hazard.
Right. It's like, oh, like who knew that was going to happen, right? And then, but then it's like, so we paid her hush money. Why? Well, because she's making noise when I'm running for president, and people are going to take it the wrong way. That's why. So I paid to shut her up. But then the guy turned around and smacked her down in court, and she had to pay back his legal fees. I'm like, so I don't know how they ought to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Well, there is. I think that it is a kind of an amazing feat. I do think that Trump is the right guy at the right time to come in and do this. I don't think that he's part of the cabal. To say that he was bailed out by the Rothschilds is like, if you're going to get bailed out, you're ultimately going to be bailed out by the Rothschilds because they own the system, right? So,
right.
At that level, you would be dealing direct anyway. So, but he's played the bankruptcy game, and he's come up on top, right? And he's just playing the game as what's there. So, but to see what he's done in the past, I always admired him, even while I'm growing up and noticing him, right? And what he was doing in business, and that's fine. I'm not big on gambling, but I have no problem with people going and gambling. He built these casinos, great. Right, he liked to make really luxurious residences. Wonderful,
Yeah.
But,
it's funny. This drives me crazy. Is when people try to demonize things that aren't bad. Whenever somebody's like, oh, you're too materialistic. You're too much about having things. Wait a minute. If I dress nice and I like nice things, that does not make me materialistic. I like nice things. You should too. Like, why wouldn't you have nice things if you could, if they're a higher quality, they're a better fabric? That doesn't make you materialistic. Matter of fact, people who make that an issue are more materialistic, right? Because they've made it such an issue. And so they're the anti. So they're wearing burlap bags to show how unmaterialistic they are. You're just as materialistic. You're just making it something different.
And these are all just more of the psychological games where you get people to like react to other things that make no sense, right? Say, well, this is a bad thing, especially when you see the white people that are claiming things are racist as though they're a black person. They make statements along those lines, or the rich are the problem, right? You can't tax the rich; they don't own anything, right? They're impenetrable to taxes. Right? The system is set up that way, so you can claim it, but all you're going to be doing is taking the money from the more higher middle class, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
right.
Worked hard to get that money.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
To pay for people that are not working at all. Now, I think that's more a job of charity than of the government, but that's me, and I don't mind that there's some aspect of government oversight, but I think government should be more looking at pointing out where things need to be addressed and tell the public or the companies and that say, hey, listen, we need this to be fixed over here. Then try and have the government do it themselves and make laws to maneuver those people. They should just be pointing out things. They can control trade, they can control the army, but beyond that, they should really just point out things. So when you elect people and put them into a position of power, they shouldn't be able to create these structures that give them more money and more power. They should only be there to, point out where the issues need to be addressed. Right.
Right. And that's why President Trump, to his credit, I mean, he came in very wealthy, having everything he needed. Like he didn't need to do that, right? Like he had a very comfortable life. He loved where he lived. He loved his life, right? So to that point, you know, I'm very much like I really am a believer that he's doing the very best anyone could, and I support him energetically, hoping he just is able to maintain and get through it. I really do. I'm disappointed with certain things that affect us directly, and it affects everybody directly because blocking project funding has kept 1.2 million people homeless, in Florida. Blocking, this funding has kept Paradise, California in a diminished state.
But
So now,
Trump is not blocking it, right?
no, Trump is not blocking it. He's not. However, at the end of the day, all it takes is for Trump to pay back the money, or like pay back the 2% fee that's owed to the trust, and that's separate money. And Kim would have fronted all that. I mean, she would have taken all of it.
So whenever Kim is basically sending that money, she's sending 102%.
Right, always. Well, in some cases, depend. Like so, for example, see, Kim understands exactly how to generate liquidity within the entire society. She understands how the whole economy will thrive, right? So, for example, if I were to bring in $100 million into Citibank for a project from Kim, and now that $100 million, let's say it's phase one funding, that means I'm going to spend it right away. Now, a bank that doesn't really help them much. So when I bring that money in, at the same time, she'll bring in another $100 million in assets. It could be currency that's backed by gold, or she'll bring in gold or diamonds, whatever it is that bank would prefer, just so that bank can use it, and they can generate liquidity based on loans and however else banks make money. Now that's unheard of. When we tell them, they're so used to financial instruments and these silly things that they use, which it doesn't it's not necessary when you're bringing in the real asset, right? You don't have to do that. You bring in the gold and you can use it as leverage to loan against, and so she'll do things like that. Now the fee, the 2% fee, that's what all of the Rothschilds, all of the Clintons, all of the things they would do whenever they brought money in. They always got a 2% administrative fee. They always did that. Now Kim is so humble. I mean, she would she all that will go back to the people. She's going to pay her bills or whatever, which are nominal, and she has no desire. I mean, she does not care. She's told me many times when she's done with this, she's going to hide out in Siberia somewhere and be off the grid. She wants to go do scientific research and like we have access to all. She has access to amazing technology, you know, amazing things, and she just wants to go explore that, And she has several other roles she plays that she'd rather be invested in. Now, what they're constantly trying to do, they tried to buy her off one time, which I thought was hilarious. They offered her $500 billion if she would just, relinquish the trust. And she's like, I mean, just to speak to her integrity, she's like, are you joking? I'm in control of all of it. You can't even get access. They tried to steal all the money and slip it onto the Babylon 6 system, right? Or whatever it was, the Babylon system. They tried to use that. And she watched them try to steal from her. I saw the letter, the time-stamped email from the Rothschilds that said to her, we will not. She offered them half of all the assets. And I remember talking about, she said, I'm so confident in humanity that if all we had was half, people that have a creative mind, she said, if we had 1/100th of what they have, we would change the world.
Well, you know what? They believe the same thing, and that's why they wouldn't do it.
That's right. Oh my gosh, that is such a hard truth. They know that's true because they're married to mediocrity, right? They want their mediocre averageness to perpetuate forever and control us by boring us to death. The master plan is to bore us to death. It drives me crazy. It's like, what have you guys done differently? I mean, Congress, the meetings they have, the laws they pass, we all get excited, and this is why I just struggle with the following political movements, because they don't do anything. They just talk.
Yeah.
They talk and they have meetings. Like how many I've watched things, 100 times where I thought it was like the one that actually, resulted in action. It's like, okay, great. They passed the bill. Okay, now it has to go here. Okay, then they pass, and now they're going to deliberate. Now they're going to deliberate to see if they're going to vote on it. Then they're going to vote on it to see if they're going to deliberate on it and vote on it again. Then they're going to vote on the meeting. Do you know I was down by the Federal Reserve? My good friend and I, we were down by the Federal Reserve, and they had thrown out all the in New York, and they had thrown out all this garbage. And so we were just laughing like It was late. We were drinking and walking home, and we saw this big box of documents from the Federal Reserve. We're like, oh, when was it here, right? We actually found a document. I mean, a 40-page PowerPoint. And the 40-page PowerPoint was on how to plan to conduct a meeting for a government. It wasn't even a specific agenda. It was just how to plan the meeting for a specific country. And the whole thing, I'm like, you have 40 pages on this? I mean, these guys have nothing to do. Just busy work on top of busy work. Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like we could all be out there, taking this money, putting it to work. I got people in Ghana that are trying to grow food. I got people in Australia that have revolutionary, world-changing, ways to raise the healthiest fish on the planet, and organically, and technology that can do away with all the alleged global warming. We could have all that stuff done in a year. In a year, the only thing holding us back is a hierarchy that we all accept. And that's what I'm trying to. What is it that these guys have that makes them the hierarchy? Is it because if I were to look at it, it started with the divine, right? This generic divine, because we all kind of say, well, God is above everything. Well, I know this is a fact for anyone out there who thinks, that wants proof. This is a factual document that the sole monarch on the planet had. He coined the term the divine plan. And the divine plan was all of these rules and regulations, but in it, it sounded very much like any doctrine you would hear in any church. And it would say, the sovereign authority always going back unto God, always going back to the divine. But in reality, you had to read the other part where the divine was him, right? He was the divine. He had gone from the sole monarch to a military dictator to the king of kings to a god, right? So he thought of himself as a god. So you have the divine. Then from there, I guess you have the royals, royal, whoever it is, the crown.
Well, it's part of a psychological delusion, right? If you have so much power, right, over everything, right, that and you're living for such a long time, all these others are dying, every moment you're looking, another one dies. Oh, you're, yeah. As we get older, and we're only, I'm actually 53. So I know as the years go by faster, I could imagine if I'm living 10,000 years, or 100,000 years, how fast those years tick by, right? It's like, bip, right. It goes by in a blip. So if you're working with these beings that are passing out, you got to work with families, right? So that they can generationally be there for you. Right. So
no, you're right.
But they get into this idea that, hey, I'm the guy, right? I'm the divine, right? They detach themselves from source.
That's right. And that's kind of the thing. It's we take this dumbed down version of God, that if you to take God from the standpoint of the source, substance, limits, bounds, essence, and origin of all things, the unlimited, right? You couldn't get to a place where you could get outside of that substance, right, to scrutinize and say this is what God looks like. So they just somewhere in there deluded themselves to think they were gods. And I actually I can prove that too. They actually sent Kim an email and said those exact words. They said Kim offered them a deal to give them 50% of everything. And they said, we will not negotiate with you, slave. Which, by the way, if you knew how badass Kim really is, you would never say that to her. But, but that's just in my opinion. I mean, She is badass. So they, said we will not negotiate with you, slave, and they said 50% or 80% of everything belongs to us. And they said something like, we are this, and therefore we are gods. And if you don't work with us, we will destroy you in the power of our minds. And which, if you knew, because there's all of this training that they go through, right, in these bloodline families in the order, and they all go through it. We call it the Illuminati, things like, but there is training that they have, and it's just access to what's real, right? They have access and training to understand how the energetic field, which we can prove beyond a shadow of doubt. Even though I get it, it's red pill stuff for people, but it's not. It's proven science. There's there's a I forget what the science magazine is that came out in 2006, and literally they recreated the test on the energetic field to show that it was real, right? That failed in the early 1900s. So it's not a myth. It's a fact. These things are real. And if the energetic field is real, then all the science for the past 100 years is missing, a key element to everything. It's and so it means, it's like the split test. You ever see a split test where they talk about how, they measured the atoms, converging down.
For quantum reality test, sort of like
right. Yeah. So when the scientists observed it, they said they got exactly what they expected. Every time the protons would come down, they'd go right. Sometimes they'd go left. Sometimes, and sometimes they'd hit the barrier in the middle. Every time they got exactly what they expected. When they removed that observation and just filmed it, what they saw was an anomaly that wasn't an anomaly. It was the behavior every single time. That every single time it would come down, they would split. All of them would split and mirror, and all three options would happen. It would go left, right, and hit the center every time. How is that possible? Because and then they explain how, I forget what it is, the neurons in the brain, literally the scientist's expectation in his observation affected what happened to the atomic particle.
Yeah.
Now, if that's scientifically proven, that means what we think about, we become. We are creating the reality in our consciousness about what is taking place all around us, what we're seeing, the fact that we perceive this to be real, that we are limited, that we are only this, whatever it is, we're affecting the reality all the time, and we're constantly creating it. And that's coming from our observation. Now, if we expect to change the world and make the world a better place, if we expect to build a new world, then what happens? Then we literally begin energetically creating a brand new one. And if we can expand that consciousness, to all of us agree, can we all agree on the basics? Imagine how quickly we can change the world.
Yeah. That's it. It's just where our reality is what we say it is, and that's why we are powerful, right? This is what the act of that we have that ability to create, and we create reality, and so we just have to move in that direction in the small steps, but it happens very quickly as soon as we're all doing it. We have the same wave pattern pushing us in that direction. So that's part of why we're doing this show, why we're telling people take action, do something. Copy the link, paste it on your Facebook, ask others to do the same in the comment section below. You just do that. And look, our numbers came up. It actually tripled. We were doing like 4 when we did our other shows. In the first day we did 400. Now we're at 1,500.
There you go.
And that's on 2 that were posted in the same day, really. So
right, exactly.
So they're watching both. So we just ask the same of the new people that are now watching. Do the same thing. Please subscribe so you get the notification. Hit the little bell, and then when we do this next one, and we're doing that, we committed to do this for 2 weeks in a row. So we're at T-13 will be tomorrow. Today's T-14. We're doing a countdown, kind of mirroring whatever's going on in QAnon, right? Because there's a countdown going on there. and we don't know what it's for. Is it declassification? Is it a IG report? Is it, I don't know, announcing the Fed is gone and we absorbed it into the trust? Who knows what it's going to end up being? But and maybe it's just a ruse, like D5, December 5th. Yeah, that was
right. I know.
But that was great. They all seen the show, seeing them all at the funeral,
Yeah.
High Gas Montague had the best stuff out there on his YouTube channel for seeing what went on. It was a perfect relaying of what went on in that event. So, but
it speaks to how little we expect, though. That happened. Like, what, 5 or 6 people got letters, and we're like, wow, it's going down. Are you kidding? I mean, come on. Like, you know what, people, everybody on this, I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't keep acting like these are amazing things. It's nothing. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll make a commitment. This money, we're bringing it in, right? Like, Kim's got this covered. This coming in before they do, and they're whatever's happening in 14 days. She's going to bring the money in, and we're going to be able to start funding projects. And you know what I'll do? When we bring the money in, I'll make sure to continue to update and share and talk the very best I can, unless I get so overwhelmed I just pass out. But even if that happens, tonight, tomorrow we'll do it, and I'll stay the whole 14 days, man. We're gonna get this through until we get the point across, because we have got to take down this hierarchy. The way to do it is to take down the power system, and that is what Kim has done for everyone. And the sooner people embrace that and realize it, the easier it'll be to swallow that pill, that we can all start thinking creatively again about what am I going to do if I can actually, because this isn't like grant funding that has taken place forever in the United States, right? Where every year there's $500 billion in unrewarded grants every year. And if all you did was bring that money in, every dollar would produce an extra $15, right? So what they do is they make the grants so impossible to get. It's like you have to, we're looking for someone to study frogs in the Amazon between the ages of 1 and 3 with a specific. I mean, it's so ridiculous that nobody gets those grants. It's so rare that anyone gets those grants, and when they get them, they're small. No one ever gets the big grants. They just leave that money. It's a joke to make it look like, oh, it's available for you, but it's not. They make it so hard for you to thrive. So imagine that changes, and all you have to do is have a great idea, and you're willing to commit to it, and we're willing to say we'll stick with you to make sure you're successful. How about that? Now, if you do that enough, after a while, you change the whole face of humanity, because we're sticking with you until you're successful. We're not just giving your money and saying good luck. We're going to build a team around you. We're going to make sure that you have success, because you know why? I want you to win. Because if you don't win, we are going to be enslaved again. And I am never going to be a slave. Never, never in this system again. In history, this is your one chance to change it. If this is your one chance to change it, are we really so proud that we'd rather stay their slave? We'd rather stay enslaved. That's what I cannot fathom. Whatever the embarrassing fact is that they hold on you, whatever the horrible thing you did, how about you think about your children? You want your children enslaved doing the same horrible things? Or would you rather just go to jail, do your time, and save them? Because I think at the heart of the integrity of everyone, they know that's right. And if they would just let go of their vanity, it's a repentance that would change their karmic future, and it can be better just by wanting to do better,
And I do have a lot of sympathy for those people that just went along right with the system because everyone around them is doing it, right? It's just almost a mental disorder, right? They just kind of followed along. Everyone else is doing it. That's just the reality, because it became so pertinent. Everything around them, everyone. Now, I don't know if you went back 50 years ago or 70 years ago, maybe there was a much more higher integrity across the board, but that got whittled away over time to where everything is corrupted. and so I think we need to really have some sympathy for those that didn't really harm anyone, by their direct actions, right? But and put them on the island, or whatever that is. If that's a prison island, I think Australia has been taken already, so we'll have to figure out what that island is. But at least give them retraining, into humanity and thinking of doing good for others, right? And
look,
look,
look, I'm not for any, there's things that we, there has to be, because they're actors. This is the challenge that I haven't quite balanced completely, but they're actors, right? So they'll act remorseful, they'll act this way. The key to me is like there has to be some level. I don't want humanity, and nobody does. We don't want humanity, the collective energy, to be consumed with the hateful acts that have been committed against us. We don't want that.
We don't want to perpetuate. We don't want to continue with the same energy. We need to go ahead and recognize it, put the energy over there, and deal with it by allowing them to deal with it, right, on their own, and realizing what they've done.
It's a balance, but there has to be a balance, right? We also can't continue to allow people who we all like. It's known. I mean, the NSA verified this video that came out on the dark web of Hillary Clinton, her snuff video. We cannot allow her to continue to do anything. Like, she has to be taken somewhere for reprogramming.
That's harming someone in such a horrible way. I mean, this is one of the people that should be hung.
Yes.
That's the reality. It's like, if you're cutting the face off of a child to create fear in them so that you can eat their brain afterwards, and horribly sexually abuse them along the way, you've got to dangle. In fact, they should probably let you dangle for a while just before dying, let you recover, and dangle you again. Throw you off and hang you a second time, because this is so far out there that those people that have done that, they have to go.
Yes, I agree.
That's because they're so, and that is appropriate, energy transformation.
I think I would say it's merciful, to be quite honest. And I'm not even, I won't even go that far, to be honest. I'm not gonna advocate for that per se, and say this is what because I don't want it to come across that I'm advocating for anyone's death.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've had a lot of thought about that.
No, I get it.
I'm not one to have this happen, but in the energy of it, what this is the punishment of treason, right? On that, but on the level of actually, when you're a serial murderer, if you're of the evil intent, that is also the punishment. That is a death penalty.
I agree. Totally.
Whether it has to be a lethal injection, electric chair, hanging, it doesn't really matter. It just matters, that there's a lot of anger that is behind the other people that realize what those people are doing to the rest of society. And especially when I'm just thinking, how bad can it actually be? Meaning that you have like 2 million people, 2 million children a year disappear. Is there a factory somewhere that's processing them? How bad is it?
Well, I mean, they've said, I've heard different reports on this, and some of these things definitely have been tested, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I know for a fact that I've seen the photographs in the back of the slaughterhouse where they were allowing kids to die that would literally just be ground up into the meat. And they said that it's something like 90% of the population at some point has consumed human flesh from something like that, where they just ground it in the midst. And I hate to even talk about that because it's a dark place. And I will say, I really do feel we need to show these people mercy. And I think death is merciful by comparison, because if they were to, if these things come out now, but I also think we need to show compassion for all the people that have been affected by the crime, which is everybody else.
Everybody.
Every no matter what you think, you've been affected by their crimes. And this is one thing that happens when I, really started to talk about these things to regular people in my world. They look at me like I got six heads. They're like, that doesn't happen. That's so rare. What are you talking about? I'm like, it's not rare. Matter of fact, you're talking about 2 million kids. Now, 2 million kids means that, there's a lot of people affected. I mean, there's only 300 million people in the United States. So I don't know what the math is, but it's like, that's pretty, common. Like, that's something like where we should all be a little concerned.
One out of 100, 2 out of 100. No. So what? 1 out of 100, let's say. But the other thing is when I haven't seen what since the Reagan's time, when the first issue about illegal immigration was there, and they were talking about the number of illegals, and it had been theorized at that time, up to 10 million, 20 million, 24 million. And that number never changes, but the immigration problem just continued. So if there's 25 million is the latest numbers, but or the census only showing 12 million, where are the others?
I know.
Do those people realize that are coming up from Honduras and Guatemala? They're making this caravan up. Do they realize that they might be eaten?
They definitely don't. They don't know that. And it's it's funny because you see what happens when they get herded into the tunnels, right? And then they're greeted, right? And they're identified and put in different places. Not by the Border Patrol, by the whatever they're called, coyotes, the whatever. They're categorized certain ways. Like if the guy, and you got these guys traveling up with like 10 kids, like they're there because they get money for them. And the kids get sacrificed, and then across the border you get, when they come up on the other side, you get maybe 30 people come up that got rejected, right? Because they were either sick or what they didn't fit a certain category, and they make it through, and they have no idea what happened to everybody else, right? But meanwhile, they drop them in buses somewhere else, right? Somewhere, and they go and they end up, trying to find work in the United States, and I don't, it's hard. Who knows what percentage is good or bad? It's not the point. The point is, it's merciful not to let them even make the trek because they are being cannibalized. I mean, literally
cannibalized.
And you know what? It's Trump's credit. He is the first one to really bring human trafficking to be a mainstream, a massive problem.
Yeah, but at a low level of awakening, right? Just like have people's eyes open just slightly to know that there's human trafficking, that there is such a thing. No one would think that there was any sort of trafficking. And if you said it was slavery going on, no one would believe it, right? But you start talking about human trafficking, said, okay, well, people are being trafficked. Okay, well, and then you would start saying, well, 90% of the girls that are coming up are going to be raped along the way. I mean, this is not.
Is that right? Is that what the number is?
Yeah,
I know it's
something like that's why even when the parents are sending their young daughters out this way, they give them birth control, so because they know that they're going to be raped along the way.
Gosh,
and it's probably because the other ones are not meeting the criteria as you laid out, right, to be raped, or whatever, they're too sickly, didn't fit the right whatever, but this is sickening, the whole process. So, and how can Trump go out and tell on national media, okay, listen, we've got people coming up and they're being eaten, right? That they're being tortured and they're harvesting them for their organs, for their adrenochrome. They're just going to label him as crazy, right? And they're going to move him out of office. And that's why he can't do that, right?
I know, and to his credit, he is bringing attention to things.
He is
the best he can.
He's doing the necessary work from the small little idea of human trafficking,
which
and ignoring.
I think it's better. At least people hear it that way.
Yes,
You know,
I agree.
I'm amazed. Yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. He's doing it the only way that it can be done is over this time, and that's why even pointing out these sealed indictments, right? That's happening in the background. They're not unsealing them at $5,000 a month, right? They're doing it 5,000 a month. So, and each sealed indictment can be from one person to 99.
Wow. Yeah.
So, we're how many people are going to be included in this, and who's going to get who's going to the island?
Yeah. Well, I just, in my experience, this is what the biggest challenge is. I'm not talking about this from outside of the loop on this. What I struggle with, who do people think is enforcing this? Because the reason why you have 88,000, sealed indictments, there's nobody who's they haven't figured out who the good guys are and the bad guys are.
Right.
And even the good guys, the well-intentioned guys, right? A lot of them are so low, they have no idea. They can be ordered to go, gun down a crowd of people because they have, some zombie apocalypse leprosy disease, and they would do it, right? And they wouldn't even know. I mean, that's why like the guys like the Oath Keepers patch guys, like they're so important because they've taken a stand to say, I will not turn on, the American people. But I know a lot of those guys. I mean, I had extended, and they were protecting the Chinese. Those were the best of the best, and they were protecting a foreign entity that's paying the military, that's controlling our government, and those were the good guys. So that's the challenge of guys. So what changes it, right? So Kim said this, and I love that she said this. Everybody can talk. She's going to act. And I'm telling you that right now, all the proof anyone will need is when the money is in control of the right people's hands. And it's got to be people that are not part of all that. I mean, and most regular people are not. Most regular people are decent human beings. Most people would never, never vote to let a child born alive die on the table. How is it possible that our senators who represent our interests voted to let that go through? That is a tragedy that it is, first of all, it's unconstitutional because life is defined as being taken out of the womb by any means necessary, whether it's failed abortion or not, and that child is alive. The Constitution says that. And they keep passing these laws that are anti-constitutional. They're literally throwing it out. They're just ignoring it. This guy Cuomo in New York is a gangster. I mean, he just on top of being the first one to pass that law, this horrible born alive law, or this horrible, women can have abortions up to, the full term of their pregnancy, whatever they want. They just, if they show up to the doctor and say, you know what, I feel like this baby's going to kill me, so I want you to take it out of me. I don't care what happens to it.
Well, soon it'll be the 100th month abortion.
I said that same thing. After a while, it'd be like, I'm 42 years old. I don't want to talk too much because maybe an abortion is still possible because they'll just come take us out and justify it that way. Because really, you're saying the most precious moment of life when all of us, who is the savage who could do that even? I mean, you got to think of the heartless.
That's why I couldn't believe in when it was pointed out in the State of the Union. Trump did it so beautifully to point this out and to have all those women there wearing white, that are not going to support babies. Who are those women? Who voted for them? That makes no sense. How can they take that position? To say, okay, after birth they're going to be aborted or not helped. They're born alive. Are you really? It's come out now. It's still alive. You're not going to rescue it. You're gonna go ahead and dismantle it.
I mean, it is an absolute nightmare, and really, to be honest, that vote in the Senate, the mainstream media is not even talking about it. No. There should be debates. There should be people just furious. They should be doing something. Now, if we can't come together on that, I mean, that is a little bit scary, right? But I think that there's more. The reality is the people are united on that. I think all people, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, agree. Wait, that's too far, right? But they're not showing that, because the top authorities, if they make that legal, think about what it does to the crimes they've committed. Because it's a standard practice for anybody out there. This is a standard practice that they will sacrifice babies. Look, Ted Gunderson, who one of my very good friends, Jude Chase Amber, she traveled all over the world speaking with him. He was exposing these satanic cults and the sacrifices. He said it was 50 to 60,000 human sacrifices every single year to satanic ritual, just in the United States. Imagine that.
Just divide that by state, divide it by the number of cities. I mean, that's like everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, right? I mean, and that was just what, the basic, based on the findings of his group, right? And I mean, he was over the FBI. That's legitimate findings, and he would constantly be recording this, and they, even with this, with all this attention on Jude Amber Chase, she was adopting twins, and they took them. Her nanny took them and trafficked them, right? And she couldn't get the child services to go investigate until they were like 18, but by that time they had been broken. They had been trafficked, had been used, because that's part of what they do. They don't have a respect for life. Now, in my opinion, in the hierarchy, right, of what they've created, somehow in their mind, they're so high or above the rest of humanity that that's okay. Well, then, if that's the case, we cannot coexist. So you have to go, right? Not you. They have to go, because we are the ones who are the proper caretakers of this planet. Now, what gives us the ability, the authority? Now, first of all, legally, every contract that we were tricked into is now void. I mean, not void. They've all expired. They've run their course. Now, there's international contracts that put us in these situations. They're all out the window.
Well,
right
okay. Let me ask you on that particular topic. So one of those, that you're not really consenting to is the birth certificate entity, right? And if you dig hard and you figure out that it exists, even then you don't know how to undo it. There's nothing clear, right? And so many people go out and try and everything. So I always thought it would be good to say, okay, well, that's if there should be, the government saying, well, this is what it is. This is exactly what it is. This is the legality of it, and this is your options with it. And literally give people what it's supposed to be, is the benefit, right? You're supposed to be the beneficiary of this trust. So teach the people how to be the beneficiary of that trust, and do it. Now, that was what I was thinking. I don't know if that still exists in regards to what you're saying. All contracts are expired and all this kind of stuff. I don't know if that's, but that's the system as it's been structured, and how they market those birth certificates, and they trade on them and make more money off of them, and do you go to court and they make money off of you being in court. All of it.
So that system with the birth certificates, it stopped in 2007. That's the first thing. So that's no longer the practice. Just FYI. The other thing is, every one of those accounts, the Social Security birth certificate accounts, now, of course, once you create an account, it always exists, right? Like you said, like you tested, yours is there, right? And obviously, these were the charge-off accounts. So they would always charge everything off to make money off us repeatedly. They would just charge off on our Social Security number. They'd get paid. But at first, what that was originally designed to do, benevolently, I guess, was to, for you to go to college, for you to, buy a house. It should have been there for you to access, right? But in the beginning, the siphoning, criminal banking cartels, what they would do is they would take like 10%, and then over time that number just kept growing until in the end, it was like they were taking like 99%. That's why the Social Security like benefits were like, oh, or the next generation isn't going to have Social Security. Well, because they were stealing the money. It wasn't because it was there wasn't enough money. It's because they had just slowly been taking it over, and they had grown so accustomed to a certain lifestyle of just power and riches and doing whatever they wanted for entertainment. Um, more than anything else, and we just kept because people would just constantly be in desperate situations. We'd sign up over and over again for things like that. But I can tell you that all those accounts are drained.
I looked up like my QSIP number and on what the trading was going on, and there was new stuff happening on my Social Security entity, right? And I had 220,000 entities trading on me. So, and there was new stuff. So, and this was just last year when I last looked into it, and I checked other people's Social Security, QSIP numbers, and they only had 10,000 or 20,000 or 3,000. So for some reason I got a lot trading on me, and I think it's because I did a lot of creating entities, right? And I think it's something.
Right. Well, and yeah, you were in different countries and all those things that allow them to. But in reality, all of that stuff, the trading platforms, the real trading platforms, have been shut down for about 4 years now. Five, I think I want to say 2014, but for a while now. So they haven't really been trading anything. What they've been doing is fabricating fake money out of nothing, right? So they've been using that entity it's kind of like a known recipe that they used, and the people who didn't get the memo.
They're still doing it. They're still doing trading. I know when they started trades up again, right? The holidays is over. I know the day they started, and that's so there's people out there actively playing that part.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But is this something that of course it's in their fake money system. So if you end up with a bunch of more ones and zeros in your account, and you're able to then go out and buy a car and a house and go to dinner, is for you it's real. So
that's a good point, because the asset is real, right? When you own a house, that's real, right? Sure, I agree. But I know some people who really have gone in very deep to get free and be able to access those accounts, and it's never a pretty picture. I mean, the one guy, the cops broke through his front door and tackled him, and he's still, they smashed his hips, and they do these. It's so aggressive, and I'm not even sure exactly what it is they hold over the cops, but I can tell you right now, the biggest lawsuit maybe in history against the banks on the mortgages for things like this, right? And the most evidence that has ever been compiled, ever, where if this individual doesn't win, I won't even say the individual's name because I don't want to get them hurt. If this case doesn't win, no one ever could. Because there is mountains recorded everything. They recorded every detail, phone conversations, documents. They got the court to admit things. The court broke their own laws. It just shows how really corrupt it is,
right.
And how awful these things have been. And the reality is they're all covering up, the real stuff. It's like this guy just came out recently, right? And he left the Masons, and he got pretty high up in the Masons. And he was saying at each level you go up, you get like a new level of secrecy. And he came out and exposed everything and just told everybody what was going on. The guy was there. That's normal. It all traced back to the Rothschilds and these satanic rituals, and they're all a bunch of Satanists. And it's something that you only see in on TV shows and cop shows. People think it's crazy. It's like, no, they worship Satan. It's they and at your expense. So we got to flip that script. We got to wake up, flip that script, and realize what we're doing. And say, hey, let's take a stand on that one.
Well, I think if there is a way to move this money into people's hands to make this happen, and Kim can bypass all their blockades, then this will happen.
I agree.
So we're at that point, and I'm very happy to hear that. Right, I should give you my list of the projects that I had given to the Rodriguez Trust. Right.
I got you covered, man. Don't worry. You and I will talk about it right away. We'll put a plan in place. Look, you know, we've
I just crossed my mind and something that I was listening to the X-22 report, and he was talking about the Federal Reserve being attacked by Trump. But he also mentioned that President Duterte of the Philippines has now taken action to nationalize the central bank here.
Wow, that's
At first I heard about it. I was going to ask if you had heard anything about that. Now, I personally had taken great effort to basically, when I talked with cabinet members, because I gave them this housing program using TBC coin as a way, because we've got 500,000 Filipinos that have TBC that they could use as an asset. Just use as an asset so they can get a loan, right? So that would be the program. The government would somehow help by maybe guaranteeing or providing insurance or something along that line. But it was just a one pager, but I gave it to 4 of the cabinet officials here. And there's other people that I'd spoken with that were higher up in the government. And I would say, hey, do you know about the Philippine Central Bank? Who owns it? I just asked them, who owns it? And so, well, the Philippine government owns it. And I'd say, no, you don't. I said, under Marcos, you owned it, but you sold it off, and so it's now a private institution. And so this is why the Philippines is not prospering. You guys got to do something about it. So I don't know if that started anything, but I would like to know, what, how that came about and what's happened. So we'll see.
I got to tell you, there's a different level. Like I always say, I'm doing my best to stay in tune and in touch with what's going on with the people, and to be an accurate representative of what is going on, and be a voice for the people, right? Just like you are. On the government level, Kim is doing a lot of things, and for the most part, there's just a handful of the 200 plus nations that have really come around to accept her offer of sovereignty, right? But there's more and more that are coming on board, right? Because they realize the benefit of being sovereign. But meanwhile, in that, they're being threatened, with all types of biological warfare and, nuclear weapons, which, by the way, to every country out there, there is no nuclear weapon that will ever go off on this planet ever again. The codes for them, they change like every 5 seconds. And guess what? The Rothschilds, sure as heaven, do not have the code. I promise you. They will never access them. No government official can access them. All of those nuclear weapons are kaput. I know that for a fact. Okay. So whenever they threaten nuclear weapons, they're lying. They're lying. They don't have the power, right? The biological weapons that they were going to use, the reason why we're not all dead from biological weapons they were going to use, because there's a team and they took the biological weapons they were going to use and they re-engineered them so that they are naturally attracted to their DNA. So the bloodline system that they've been so proud about, they used it again. So they took their own biological weapons, re-engineered them so that they will only attack their bloodline. So everything they've been doing, Kim's team, they have taken those things apart and used them against them. And even, that's the same system we're doing with the Guardian of Camelot. It's like, it's an association, just like their secret societies. And we're saying, hey, we're unincorporated, tax exempt. We're out of your system. We're out of your UCC guidelines, legally too. We're not doing anything wrong, right? And we're trying to bring people together behind that power together. So it's like, look, you can't control us with laws that are, even the lawyers that you were talking about, right? Like the lawyers, elected officials, they're loyal to the crown. That's why they can't represent us. They can't represent the people. They're loyal to a different government altogether, So you can't have people in our country who are supposed to represent our interests, represent, an authority they deem as being above us or high. And that's where the hierarchy, and I agree with you about the lawyers. I mean, that's the hierarchy. our lawyers, we have a team of lawyers that we've been building that we call the Hawks, right? And their job is to just to look everywhere all the time to find what they're going to do next, seek them out, find ways to take down all the different pieces of their organization, to examine these contracts and look for the loopholes, to make sure that the ways that they're going to try to attack us, that we see before them, because we've got to flip the script. We've got to make them react to us. We play back. I mean, they're so slick with their little things they do all the time. We got to see that stuff coming. And right now, I don't know about you, but I just feel like they're so transparent. I mean, they're losing it. Like, they're falling apart. And I will tell you this, and Kim told me this today, and I was, I wanted to cheer when I read it. She said, we've got them on the run. We have got them on the run. And she said, they're blocked everywhere. She said, except the phone. So that has never happened. And so to me, that's exciting. That means, you know what, guys, people who are compromised, you know what, it's okay. You're safe. Come out. They can't get you right now. We can make a difference right now. It's the only chance you will ever have where you get to actively choose. I use the scripture all the time. Deuteronomy 30:19. I place before thee blessings and cursings, life and death. And just in case we didn't get it, God gave us the answer. He goes, choose life. Right now, 1,000 times a day, we get these choices, right? I mean, really, how we respond to, how we treat our kids, how we treat our mother, how we respond to someone who cuts us off in traffic. It's life or death. And if we just keep choosing life, we just keep choosing to be an ambassador for what it means to be free, right? Then other people are gonna be like, what are you doing? I want to be that too. I tell them, look, I choose life every time. I choose life over and over again. That's the option. And as far as I'm concerned, that's how we change the world.
Yeah, well, that's it. We're in that position to choose, and that's why we're doing this program. Wake up, take some small actions. Wake up. Let's see if we can get this up to 3,000 people a day. I mean, we jumped up by 3 times, in one day. Come on, everyone! Just take this link, pass it on, ask people to subscribe, and click the notification bell, and then go ahead and comment it, and then pass it on, share it, and then not only share with by the automatic sharing, but copy it and paste it on your Facebook. So, and then ask people in the comment section below to do the same thing. That will actually cause this message to get out there.
Yes, indeed.
So, we've been going again a little over 2 hours. So,
yeah, man, it's not on purpose. We should probably kill it, because I know these get too long and people just kind of zone out. But
yeah. So we've got 79 people watching. So that's the same as in yesterday. Floated between 70 to 100 people. So we're if we keep this rolling, we'll make people wake up. And that's what we want to do. Let's wake up to what's going on. We should start opening this up to a Q&A, where we allow people to join us on here. I could post the link now and see if someone wants to jump on. I would say if you want to hang out another 10, 15 minutes, see what happens.
I'm here.
All right, let me go ahead. I'm going to post the link and see what happens here. Okay, so it's posted there in the chat room. So all you do have to click on it, and you will join. But please be on topic. This is not for the Billion Coin or Kringle Coin. Let's stay on topic, unless this is directly related to what we're discussing. So there may be some overlap, but it's posted. Please come on, and we can discuss these topics if you have any questions for Tank. Someone is saying, Pirates of Jekyll Island, show your history. We're talking about reading a book.
History of Jekyll Island?
Yeah, something like that. Read Last Waltz of the Tyrants and the creature of Jekyll Island know your history. That's what they're saying. So, anyway,
yeah. The people, those are great historical references, but what they what they both do, excuse me, they both stop. They stop before they get to the real hierarchy. So this individual is the same guy who tries to attack me all the time about this. I'm like, look, you don't know more about this than me. I'm sorry, you don't. Right? Like,
listen,
I get it.
the trolls are there. I take on the trolls. I say, come on and speak. Don't sit there and chat, right? You want to say something and it's negative? Fine. You come on and you speak to us. And, mano a mano. Just speak face to face, because don't sit in the shadows and accuse, right? The part of freedom is being able to face your accuser. So if you want to accuse me or Tank of something, let's bring it out and let's have the dialogue.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Don't call names, right? Don't just what is it that you want to basically? What's your points? Bring out the points. It will help. We might be wrong about something. It's possible, right?
Oh my! It's absolute. There's absolutely something wrong about. Absolutely. That's a fact. But I guarantee you, it's not. Jekyll Island and me knowing my history. Like, no matter what you do with your history, no matter what your version of history is, it doesn't change the reality of what's happening and what's true right now. So these guys, they're just trying to poke holes. They don't even bring evidence.
Well, we'll leave it open there for a while. So people, if you want to just jump on and ask your questions, it's fine. If you want to be on the opposing and opposite opinion, that's fine. It actually is a great benefit to have the conversation, right? And there are things that I am the most happy when I'm found out that I'm wrong about something, because then I can change.
Man, look, I'm with you. You know what? And I'll tell you, it's funny. Of everybody that was like a voice for the RV and the GCR, I don't know any of them who came out and said they were wrong and apologized, except for me. And I'm not saying to boast. I'm just saying, like, I don't. If I'm wrong, I will keep working until I find the truth. Now, it just so happens that, but when I'm talking about it, like, I'm going to be very confident, especially now. Like, I don't speculate on these things anymore. Like Kim, and Kim's good. Like, I had it a little bit wrong about the supernova, so she gave me the piece I was missing. And I appreciate that. Like,
yeah, that makes sense to me. I understand that much better now, so that helps. So we got to ask questions. We got to find out what it is. A super note. Okay, I can listen and try and absorb more information. But if I still don't understand, you need to ask the question. So if you don't understand what we're talking about, let us clarify. If you ask the question of us, just come on there and ask. It's a little bit harder while you're texting, to bounce back and forth. But you jump in here with us, we can have the conversation. We'll keep it open. Maybe we should try and make a practice of, like, maybe after the first hour or something, we'll post the link and people can jump on, or whenever, something like
that. Dan, I think this is going to happen. I think we're going to have really amazing news in the next few days. Now, I'm not sure if it'll be tomorrow night, next night, or when it's going to be, but that's just my vibe, right? Based on information that I have. And I think we should try to hit the first 30 minutes of just straight update and content, and then let people ask questions. I think we could do that, because you know what, all it's gonna do is just engage more answers. And some of the people that follow what I do, they don't really appreciate what a resource you are either. They don't know. So I'm sure they have lots of questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. I've been doing this pretty consistently for about 3 years. And my focus has been to educate, right? Whether a lot of it was cryptocurrency, but it was also the GCR. But I had a different perspective of the GCR. I never really got into the currencies in the beginning. I still really didn't get into them. I mean, I understood what was going on, and I did exchange TBC coin for ZIMs, right? And I go to places where they want to offer me a bunch of ZIM or dinar here in the Philippines.
Right.
just to have a conversation with them. But then I kind of figure out pretty quickly who's real and who's not, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And they're telling telling stories and things. But yeah, so I've got a lot of experience that not many people have, and I just happen to be on the path for this information to come to me. And it's not like I made a point out of it. I did technology companies. We've got a lady has showed up where we got someone here. So,
Yes.
hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
lady. Well,
Hi.
we see your little, we see your feet up there on the banister. Just kicking.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, my rifle's right there next to it.
I see it.
So I can't wait to get started with this. I'm. I'm. The anticipation is just getting to me.
I know. I know.
Just
But
don't use that shotgun while you're being Nancy about it.
I want you to. I really want to recommend this as an energetic practice. It's painful, right? And when you're in pain, you want to kind of breathe through it, right? And in this moment in the time we're in, you know, because we see a reality that's very hard to absorb. It's really, really tough. You know, you want to breathe through it and really try to connect with the frequency that gives you the peace to know it's already done, right? You know, there's a scripture over in Psalms, and the way it reads is, if it had not been for Yahweh, or it had not been for God, and then it says, who is on our side, right? So it was God, and it said, who is on our side, and then it says, who hath already saved us, right? Now, I'm not telling you to look for somebody else to save you per se, but the principle, right? Hath is the word hath, Hath, is past, present, perfect tense. It means that it stretches forward and back, up and down in all directions in time. It means that in this moment, in this perfect moment in time, it has already been accomplished, that you have already been revitalized. You've already been restored. And that doesn't mean to say that in this state which you're at right now, it's going to stay like this and this is as good as it gets. That's not what it means. It means it's already been accomplished. You're just literally just kind of falling into it right now. You're in the air. It's like like the circus, and they fly out, and one guy jumps and he turns around, and as he puts his hands out, he's just floating for a second, and then all of a sudden they connect. And where we're at right now, you are right here about to connect. So don't be anxious. Just be be at peace with it. We're there.
Right. I am doing my best. I did challenge Robert to come in, but apparently he doesn't want to. He
Robert is That's the Jekyll Island guy or who's running his mouth over there?
he's causing a little trouble in the chat.
Man, Robert, listen, man, it's okay. Like, come in. You don't have to agree with me, but but I got to tell you before you come, don't come to me with 100-year-old history about something to try to educate me on something, and you're not going to let go of that when I'm telling you about what's right now and I'm witnessing to firsthand. See, that's where the argument falls apart. I know there's value in those things, but the problem is there's always been more to the story that you're not talking about. It's like Anna von Reitz. She goes back to 1865 all the time, but the story goes much further back. And she doesn't know that part of the story, or she's not telling it. You know, so she knows everything that happened after 1865. Nobody can mess with her, but there's more to it.
Well, yeah, Robert, please, you're welcome to come on and talk about that. Yeah, just let's try and have a constructive conversation about what may happen, right, or what we're trying to engage in right now. So if this is the time where Kim's figured out how to move the money around and it hits, great. If it's not, oh well, they've blocked it somehow. That may happen. I pray that we're moving forward and that there's not another delay in this world of waiting, right? But we don't have to wait on everything, right? We can do other things.
It looks like you need to post the link again because they don't understand how to get in.
Okay, I'll post it again.
Hey, Janet, you want to tell people what you're gonna do? What do you want to do?
Actually, I've been talking about it a little bit in the chat, how I want to have the greenhouses with the aquaponics. My experience with the homeless people in the homeless shelter was just really devastating for me. They need help desperately. And I got this idea.
Why? What was devastating? Tell.
You practically have to sign over everything. I sat there and read their contract. And I was just like, I'm not signing this. I don't understand. I can see where people, if you're desperate and it's cold and you want to stay in, you'll sign anything. But I refused to sign it. And I couldn't believe that they're asking people to do that.
So how are you going to change? How are you going to change it? What are you going to do instead?
There are several small properties here that can be bought. My idea is to put tiny houses on these properties and have greenhouses and gardens, help them raise chickens, ducks, goats, geese, whatever. And I just really, I think if they had something to do, they would be a lot happier.
As a rule, I think that applies to every single human being on the planet. So I think that's that. Now, you were going to target the veterans, is that right?
Veterans, apparently there's several of them that are homeless here where I'm at. My granddaughter was telling me about them the other day. And yeah, I'm wanting to target the veterans, and I'm also wanting to target these women in this homeless shelter here.
And that was the abused women, is that right? Or no?
No, they're just homeless. I assume that they probably were abused, and that's why they left in the middle of the night. A lot of them do.
So you are going to change the world, starting with your little town.
Right.
Is that right?
That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
You know what? That's what I want you to do too, girl. I'm telling you right now. I got your back. We're going to make that happen.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Now, if I could only figure out how to write this project plan.
Look, remember, we got you.
Simple. Just simple. Don't just write it out as you see it in your head. Just don't worry about being wrong about anything. Just write it out. You can just make a paragraph to start with.
Right, yeah. And I can do that. I mean, I can picture it so clearly in my head what I want to do. So clearly.
Just like you would tell us in a conversation. Just to write it out that way, because the rest of it will flow after that. Where it's going to be, what you need to put in it. The picture will form if you just start taking the small little steps.
Yep. First step
we're going to bring Dan
from the property.
Yeah, we'll do that. We're going to bring Dan into the network. I'm gonna force him to come in and contribute. He's got years and years of experience of planning and working on all types of things. So we're gonna take advantage of him, to bring him in and just contribute to kind of give people that guidance. Anyway, we want the. What's that?
I actually was I'm part of an organization called CEO Space, and it's about cooperative capitalism. And it attracts a lot of people that want to do charitable companies, right? And they have some charity thing they want to do. About half of the people that come there to learn. And the idea is they bring in CEOs from around the country that are very successful as a give back. And you get to sit down and have meals with them or attend their lectures. And it happens 3 times a year. And I'm a platinum member of that organization. So it was 1 week of classes 3 times a year, but everyone stays for an additional week to help the other people that are there. And it's just on our own. There's no classes or anything. We're just staying at these hotels and helping them. Oh yeah, okay, we'll meet tomorrow. We'll do this and we'll do. And so I have a lot of time in to work with the people on that want to do something good, but they don't know how to take those simple steps. That's why I said just whatever the little story, little paragraph that you want to do, just write that out. That's the first step. Right? And so but the other thing I would always do for the people that want to do charities is create something sustainable. Don't put yourself into a position to always look to go out and get money from someplace. Create a system that is self-sustaining. Those are more not for-profit organizations more than the charity. Charities are wonderful, but they get into a position where they get taken advantage of. And you look at something like the March of Dimes, where they only give a dime out of all the money that comes in, right? 10%.
Well, that was my experience. I've been evicted from my apartment, and so I was looking for help from the churches or, someplace, and they don't help here anymore. I got told no so many times, and I was shocked. I mean, even the Catholic Church, I was absolutely shocked. They don't help you anymore. And
even the Catholics?
Even the Catholics. Hey, I was raised Catholic, so I was actually shocked. I have a cousin that's a Monsignor, and he told me all these places to call, and they all said no. And I never called him back because I didn't want to tell him.
Well, I would call him back and have him call for you. You'll get in someplace right away.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I think probably when you're a Monsignor, you're going to end up finding the niche that they're going to put you in because they're going to support their own, and that's what's going to happen. So I mean, that's the reality of it. If you have that connection, I would take advantage of it.
Oh, and by the way, Janet, every phone call you have with every person, make sure you record it. Record every call, because every person that you call, and they're going to reject you, be as polite as you can be and make sure that you know exactly why. Because I'll tell you what, if there's a legitimate reason, there's a legitimate reason, and that's fine. But a lot of this, we have to start documenting these things to see where's the breakdown, what's the problem, how do we fix it, And if we don't record it, now, in some cases, to be quite honest, I just want to expose them. And that's really, we have all types of evidence like that on the banks to show just how ignorant their practices are, how they'll deny what they've seen and what's really happening. And, all that stuff is RICO law. It's all usable. It's all that way. So
that's a very good advice. So we should document these things when they're happening. And because, sometimes the themselves don't know. Actually, one thing I found here in the Philippines is that whenever Filipinos refuse to complain, and I'm an American and I'm there and I start complaining, and then I'm there with the Filipinos. The Filipinos are over here. What are you doing? Why are you complaining?
Yeah, we don't complain, right?
And then they're surprised when I get a result, right, and something changes, and I'm right. Like I even get upgraded for what, like and they're surprised. But and I say, well, how are these companies going to improve if you don't tell them there's something wrong? So even from the benefit, from not that that these organizations are purposely trying to be evil. Right? Let's not put it there. Let's just say that they just don't know that they're not functional. If we record what they're doing and let them know, well, you're supposed to be helping people and you're not able to. Where is it breaking down? Right? What is the problem? Letting them know, and then they can take action to correct themselves.
That's right. Good advice.
There's a question here, Tank. Here's a question. Please describe in detail what those millions of Americans without projects are to expect.
For what? like what they're going to expect with the rest of the, to be quite honest, I can't speak for what they're to expect with what's going to happen. What I know is that we are going to bring money in. I'm presenting both sides of the case. I'm doing my very best to share both sides of what I know. There is all types of speculation on what could happen. What I know is that essentially the government appears they've been taking funding knowingly and willingly from the Manna World Holding Trust for an entire year. And when they had the opportunity to just allow us to transfer money to actual people, so we transferred money to them, there was no problem. But to get the money to actual people, all of a sudden the NSA redirects the funds, right? So that's the government. That's a government agency, at least, right? So what to expect? I got to be honest, I really don't know, because this is part of the reason why Dan and I are doing this, because I'm like, have we lost our damn? I mean, what to expect? They just voted to make it legal to kill infants. I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea. It's crazy. I mean, where are we living? It's like a horror movie. Like, how is that possible? I don't know what to tell you. Now, I'm not trying to promote fear. Okay, I'm not. What I'm saying is, thank God. I mean, thank God there's somebody at the highest level who is advocating for humanity. Thank God. And I can't emphasize this enough. I've gotten to a point where I take it very I will not allow it anymore. People that want to come and speak against this woman, you are foolish. I am going to make sure I record everyone. And believe me, I know everyone who's spoken out, because it's so ignorant. You've got one person, one woman by herself, who they have tried to starve out the same way they tried to starve out many of us, where they have blocked her, prevented her. They have tried to kill her since I've known her 150, 200, 300 times. They have sent people to try to kill her. They've had to hire new mercenaries to go up there and try to kill her. And sometimes they go up, with a mission to kill her, and sometimes they leave in body bags. Sometimes they come to a peaceful negotiation and realize they were misinformed. But here's the thing. All these people, all of you, every single person who ever watched this, you want to show this to everyone you know and realize this. You should be fighting for her, because she's fighting for you. So I don't know what the other millions of people are doing, because the mainstream fraudulent scumbag media is putting out, they're too busy hunting down Trump, right? So meanwhile, while they're spending all their time, waiting to be the next mainstream broadcaster, I guess, and they're, in their $500,000 a year BS useless career of lies, they want to protect that so bad that they will lie to the American people, cover up anything, take somebody, they'll do a casting call to figure out who the next woman is going to be in Alexandria Cortez. And that's true, by the way. That's what they did. They did the casting call, right? Like, you want to be a congresswoman? Like, well, they
have her now on campaign finance abuse. that's
I mean,
out, so
but you know what's going to happen? You know what? It's up to us. See, Fisher told me this, and a lot of people know who Fisher is, but Fisher was an old CIA agent. He'd done a lot of things, and he told me 80,000 people. That's what it takes to make it so they can't ignore you. You pull together 80,000 people, they cannot ignore you. You just get 80,000 people, because it shifts everything. It shifts the energy so strong. Now, we're pulling together people in all types of ways, but we've got to pull together people that we can really trust to be about the business of humanity. That when you are in the Senate, when you're sitting there in the Senate and you have the option, do we kill babies or no? You vote yes. Is that too much to ask? Are you freaking kidding me? They're so useless. I can't. How could those people even go home at night, talk to their kids? I mean, it's shameful.
How do they sleep?
Shameful. How do they sleep? You know what? I don't know. But what I do know, I don't know what's going to happen to everyone. I know that there's going to be projects that are going to impact everyone, though, around the world. We have just my group alone, we have projects all over the world. And I'll tell you what, that funding comes in, believe me, when everybody else has been waiting for something to fall from heaven, people like Dan and others, myself, we have been building so that we know exactly what to do. That money will go. We'll get that money out. Projects will happen. New jobs will be available. All new stuff. But it's not like, hey, everybody gets $1 million. This whole entitlement that everybody thinks they have this right to just deserve this money, that's not going to happen. The birth certificate accounts, I understand. It was a horrible thing they did. You know what? They're empty. They're empty. That's just the facts. I mean, so whatever happened with, Jekyll Island and all these other things that people want to throw at me, it doesn't matter. They're empty now. The money's not there. They've all been registered to someone else. And we're trying to give the money back to you. So let's stop fighting about it, and I'll get it to you. Like, come up with, I'll tell you, people who don't have projects, your first project is you, right? You don't have anything you want to do. You don't want to start a new business. Nothing. You don't see any issue in your hometown that you could help, because you can write yourself a salary for those jobs.
So Tank, what I've seen around the world in these poorest countries, right? They do the most amount of miraculous things with the smallest amounts of money.
Yes, they do.
They want to start a small business. I mean, they're looking at starting. In the Philippines, it's a very common thing. Is they want to start a little restaurant or a little store. I'm sorry, stores, and they need like $1,000, $2,000, right? And they're up and running, right? And they will provide for their family, just in their own little tiny business that they're doing, and those are wonderful. Yeah, they just need that little bit of lift up, right? Micro loans have been very successful wherever they've been. Those experiments have taken place, and those loans get paid back.
And I'll tell you, I'm about this. This is what I tell when I talk to people. What we're always looking to do is we want to get ownership of the business, the land, the project in the hands of the people who live there. I get approached by two kinds of people. Some people just they're not sure how to do it. That's why we built this organization. That's why I built this network, so that we have people who know exactly what to do. So if you don't know what to do, you don't have to know exactly what to do. You know what? But if you're a good person and you want to help, you want to make your own world better. The first thing I tell people, the first project you have to work on is you. Take care of stuff that's going to distract you, right? Like if you got a loan shark who's beating down your door and you owe him $6,000, like we're not gonna label it as loan shark money, right? But it could go under like immediate personal expenses. I'm sure we can cover that, right? I'm sure they'll be in the grant somewhere, So let's just be honest about it. Just be logical and stop hiding behind all the ways they're going to try to trip us up. Let's screw these guys. Like I'm tired of them trying to track us down and get us on some logistic thing while they're hunting down children and eating them. Like there's no way anybody should have the nerve to say that we're doing anything wrong. We're trying to give people money to change the world, to make it a better place, to empower people. All this, that's what the focus should be. And anybody coming after us should be embarrassed and ashamed. You should be doing all you can to help us do it. Everybody out there, everybody in every field of government, every field of military, you should all be like, oh my gosh, it's finally going to happen, because I know what's about to go down. And so all the evidence we've already given you, we knew what people will have to respond to is when we actually just start putting the money out there. And we'll do it without bias. We're going to do it fairly. You just have to agree that we're all going to support the same kind of core values that we all agree on. Go do something great. Don't hurt anybody else when you do it. It's amazing.
Okay.
We can all do that. Yes, ma'am.
There's a question here that's been asked several times, even yesterday. John Wilford writes, Tank, how can we work on showing people beyond a reasonable doubt that Kim and the Manna World Holding Trust is absolutely real and legit? I believe it, but to help all others and new people, can you answer this, please?
Yeah, I kind of just did.
Yeah, you have.
So I would say what we're going to do is we're going to start funding projects. And you know what? And the haters who don't know, and like, I don't really care. You know what? They can fall off. They can go to the end of the line. I'm not concerned about them. Everybody who just like all of a sudden is going to come to their senses. Believe me when I say this. Do not come to our organization feeling entitled like we owe you something because you're mad that we're right. Don't be mad. We're trying to help humanity, and I don't have time for people to think that we owe them something. I had a man attack me saying, "This isn't freedom," because they all attach freedom with having unlimited, waterfalls of money, and was mad at me because I wasn't giving out. I'm like, it's not I can't do that. But what I can do is if you have, something you want to work on, I can, help you get that grant money. But what I'm also doing is I've got a massive team of people that are going to help everyone be successful, whether it's a business, whether it's a project, whether it's getting their water clean, whatever it is, if it's going to benefit humanity, I've got people that are going to help you. That's the goal, right? And you know what? Anybody out there who doesn't know and like you want to help, like go Camelot. We'll get gocamelot.com. Do that. We'll bring you in.
Well, I just want to say again, because I mentioned this earlier, but in regards to this question, I was listening to Thomas for a while, and then along the way, I said, okay, well, they did a transfer to the U.S. All right, they downloaded funds. Well, I checked, and it did happen. Now, I wasn't associated with Tank or never spoke to him before or with Kim or with Thomas. I just heard the program. And I said, well, let me go ahead and see if I can find out any information. And the more that I check, the more it actually is coming back, yes. And I find actually interesting that where it's coming back is that it's good.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like dastardly behind the scene. They're saying, oh, if there's something wrong at all. No, it's good. Is it okay? And the name is the correct name. So no, it doesn't come up Kim Possible, right?
Yeah, I coined her that, like, our second phone call. I just felt like she had a lot of weight on her. I just needed to lighten it up a little bit.
Well, I love the name. I mean, that's when I first tried to check, I was looking up Kim Possible, and I found that, oh, that's a cartoon, right?
That's how I knew it.
So okay, I kind of remember that now. Is it? But anyway, but I said, oh, duh. But yeah, so now I realize it was just not the correct name. But yeah, I appreciate the humor in it, and I get it too. You make anything possible.
That's right. And that really, and I remember, first time I spoke to Kim, she broke my heart, right? Because she told me she was going in. I mean, she talked to me for like 2 hours very patiently as I was an emotional roller coaster, right? Going up and down about the RV not happening. And I'm like, now I blamed her for it not happening, right? And then, after a couple of weeks and sorting through, and she was very patient. She kept calling me back. And finally, I was like, wow, like, I can't deny. She was right every time, just like you said. In my experience, she was right so many times. But, I've had it since. I've had several. I mean, I have so many examples. I've confirmed this with, my gosh, a dozen different banks myself. When things happen, when money, I've been in interactions with Kim working on this. I've had all of these guys that, not all of them, but somebody, some representation from every organization, whether it's the Chinese elders or the, somebody in the Philippines or somebody, in Indonesia or someone in London, someone from all those places, they've reached out to me at some point trying to get Kim. We get her on the phone, and they're always very bravado. These guys, like, I have control of this, and I'm very, very important, and then by the end of the call, they're talking about, well, with my signature and your codes, right? Then we can really do some good, something like that. And they just want control, and they think they have it because somebody gave them a document, and their signature is what they think makes it official. And they have some random court in, Monaco or somewhere, right? And then what happened? But the reality is this: you don't have authority. because it's one person's DNA. One. There's just one. Her DNA opens it. Period. So people can. You want to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt? First of all, we don't need to prove it to anyone because we're doing it. Some of us have given up our whole lives to do this for everybody else. They need to prove that we even have a reason to show them anything. First of all, but Dan, kind enough to say he does have connections. I know this for a fact with the Treasury and some agencies, and you know, and he got it confirmed. If you have those connections, so can you. I do. I've had it confirmed with the CIA, the Treasury, and Homeland Security. You know what? I've had it confirmed. Now, it's not my job to have to expose to prove to anybody that this is true, because at the end of the day, you know what? People, you can go down another path. We're the only people that have offered proof. On the Speak Project, I've got dozens of confidential documents there that people can go through in detail explaining these things, you know. So, I'll tell you what, I do appreciate Dan because he's not in our circle. I mean, we just started talking a couple months ago, right? So, you know, like I didn't know him when he found this information.
Yeah, so, I actually just contacted you basically just because you accidentally posted your phone number.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's obvious. You know, I'm the least undercover person, and you know, and I love that about Kim too. Nobody knows any of the other guys' names. Like Kim puts her whole name out there, you know, and I do too. I don't want to hide. I don't want to live a life where I have to be in secret all the time. Yeah, of course, I don't want my phone number out there, but.
Well, I know you know, we need to be in the light, right? And a lot of the things in working with my community in the Billion Coin community, we have a lot of scammers that try to take advantage of our community, and they come, and we cannot be on an exchange because we're not a market-driven priced coin. So it's based upon the number of members and one grain of gold per member that comes in. So we cannot be there. So we can't be on an exchange. So all of these fake exchangers come out. So what I came down to two things. I said, you know, one is, you know, tell us, you know, how you're going to be paying out, right? Explain your business model. And second, come on a video and show your face. Don't do this from the shadows, because that's how they operate. They operate from the shadows. We have to be out front and talk about it. Even if we are wrong about something, we need to like at least know that, hey, we tried to do something what we thought was the right information. Now we found out it's this way. And that's what we do. We explain it.
That's right. You know what, Dan? And I did that. Exactly. This is what I was doing back in September 2017. I was making a lot of noise about the RV GCR, and I was begging officials to. I mean, I was on calls every night of the week, and I was begging them. I'm like, tell me what I'm missing. Somebody from the GCR talk to me, and they did. I mean, you know, that's how Jared Rand came out of hiding, right? He tried to disrupt our call, you know, and that's how. Now another group, they contacted me directly, and I was working with them for a couple of months directly from the GCR. They gave me all these amazing paperwork, and they were living in poverty because, you know, the Indonesian elders or Malaysian elders or something from OMB basically told them to, you know, they couldn't pay them or they'd be corrupted, right? So they pay them when everything was done. But they gave me so much amazing information, you know, and really lovely people. But then I went another way, and they were I think they were just ordered not to talk to me anymore. And then I put out a paragraph from one of the documents they gave me, and they hit me up and said, please, out of professional courtesy, don't post the rest of that. And to be quite honest, I don't have any professional courtesy to anyone when it comes down to there is a plan to eliminate 90% of the population. So to be quite honest, I couldn't, when it comes down to it, it's like, people need to see this document because
it's not that document. It's not there's no professional courtesy when basically talking about genocide. You want to cover it up. I'm sorry, no.
Right.
You need to come out and change your thinking about what you're doing, right? Be courteous to the rest of the population.
Yeah, you know, and so that's just what it comes down to is like, you know, somewhere in this, we've got to just, you know, even the trolls, like I get it, like you guys have a job to, stir trouble up because somebody paid you, $50 for every time your name is mentioned or something. I don't know. But like, honestly, like, get a better job. Like, stop. Like, do something else. Like, detour your stupid agenda. What you're doing isn't helping anyone. Like, you got kids too. You're people too. All of us are people, right? All of us know what that's like. All of us were a baby. Like, come on. Like, everything is from the roots up. And we have got to be rooted and grounded in the vitality and the life of the survival of humanity. That's where it starts. We have to do that. We have to.
You're correct. This is a good place to end this, unless we have anything else. And we have our new moderator, lady.
Yes, ma'am.
Tank, there's somebody wanting to know how they can contact you personally and speak to you one-on-one.
They can. I am the easiest person on the internet to get a hold of. Just tell them to go Camelot, and they can email me directly. Make sure they include their full name and their phone number, and I will call them right back anytime. Tell them to do it right now if they want to talk. I'll call them right now.
Alrighty, I put up the page for him.
You're the best.
You're on the ball. That's it. But actually, Tank and I were discussing this just before coming on this broadcast. We'll probably have to get a moderator to go through the questions, and then one appears. Thank you.
Oh dear, here I am.
And armed as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you're perfect. I didn't think about it. It's awesome.
Well, you could take care of the trolls for us, right?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'll put them back under the bridge where they belong.
That's it.
All right.
All right. I think we're at our 3-hour mark. There's a time to cut it, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow, man. Bye, Jenna. Thanks.
Bye-bye.